All right, good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Zayas from the Stoic Gaming channel, and welcome to a preview stream. We're going to be looking today at the brand new, unreleased as of yet, content for Command Modern Air Naval Operations, the expansion called Desert Storm, featuring, of course, the time frame from the first Gulf War. So we're going to get going in a few minutes here. One thing I want to do before we get going is pass the Desert Storm trailer by. I know a lot of people probably haven't seen this yet. It does not give us a scenario overview for the scenario we're playing today, but it does give us an overview of the expansion coming out what looks to be next week. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to dive into a preview of the 14th mission in the Desert Storm campaign, Liberation. Hope everyone's doing well today, whether you be across the pond or on the west coast or on the east coast. Bright and sunny here, no snow, everything's gone away, so hopefully we'll have a nice warm stream as well. Alrighty, let's get that trailer going here. So this is the preview trailer for Command Desert Storm, which also reveals the release date. Hang tight. All right, so that is the trailer for Desert Storm coming out March 28th, which is next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So this will be a preview of one of the missions inside the Desert Storm pack. We're doing scenario number 14 called Liberation. Time frame for this mission is the 27th and 20th of February. It effectively takes place around the withdrawal of the Iraqi forces from Kuwait, also known as colloquially as the Highway of Death event, where, well, you can see it in the picture here. A lot of vehicles were destroyed on a highway leading out of Kuwait, and we're going to recreate that in the scenario. Now, that like Pixel was saying in the chat, the scenario itself looks to recreate the events in a slightly different way, insofar as to provide a bit more of a challenge for the player on the coalition side. There's going to be a slightly buffed up aerial presence on the Iraqi side, as well as a few surprises for us that were not necessarily there during the actual historical event back in 1991. So we'll go through the scenario briefing here. We'll move on to the side briefing, and then we'll start our preview of this scenario. The goal today, of course, is for a preview stream. We're not going to be playing the scenario through till the end. What the hope is that we're going to go through the order of battle. We'll take a look at the environment in the scenario and probably play an hour or two in game to get our appetites wet. I don't want to spoil anything too much for you. I'd rather just leave that to the actual release next week, but we will preview as best we can, showing you the order of battle, giving us a feel for what the scenario is about, and show you a bit of gameplay as well before we call it a day. Sorry, Pixel. I can't control the next videos that show up on the when I'm logged into YouTube. It knows that there's certain kind of videos that I like to watch, and apparently I like to watch my own content because I'm that kind of guy, supposedly. So that was not planned. That was not planned. But welcome to the stream, everybody. We're going to get going here now. We're starting with scenario number 14 called Liberation. It's a moderately difficult scenario, moderately complex, in 1991, February 27th and 28th, in the Middle East for 36 hours. We are playing the coalition side. And the scenario briefing is quite detailed, so we're going to take a step through this. It'll take us a few minutes, and we'll move on to the coalition briefing. Hey guys in chat, just showing up now. Robbie and Tony First Gen, Windeman. Welcome guys, hope you're all doing well. All right, so the scenario overview says, After weeks of unceasing attack by coalition air power, ranging from tank busting with guided weapons to area bombing attacks by B-52s, Iraqi ground forces were ill-prepared to hold Kuwait. Less than a day after coalition ground forces joined combat on February 24th, Iraq's army was beginning a full retreat northwards. Coalition air power fell upon them like a thunderbolt, sealing choke points with burning vehicles and bombed bridges. Once the Red Army had piled up into miles-long traffic jams, continued air attacks began a reign of destruction to rival the carnage unleashed on the Falaise pocket in World War II. Entire vehicular columns vanished in flames, including 1,400 vehicles along Highway 8, the fabled Highway of Death. Though technically a media misnomer, many vehicles had been abandoned by the time they were struck and far more trucks died than troops. Highway 8 was a microcosm of how coalition air power had shattered Iraq's ground troops as an effective fighting force. Weeks of punishing bombardment had convinced many Iraqi soldiers that their heavy equipment was of no use, or worse, actively detrimental as it attracted airstrikes. The Iraqi soldiers' decision to abandon their vehicles on Highway 8 and their subsequent prompt destruction by airstrikes underlines how effectively coalition air power had disarmed, demoralized, and dismantled what had once been one of the largest, most battle-hardened mechanized forces in the world. Of those units that hadn't already abandoned their equipment, some did so upon engaging coalition ground forces. Others surrendered to SAME when air power showed up, and the rest were paralyzed, unable, due to lacking supplies and support, or unwilling, due to threat of air attack, to maneuver effectively. They could only face the ground assault and return fire from their prepared positions. Air power asserted itself even in these desperate last stands, such as the close air support of Marines advancing on Kuwait International Airport. Though strategic bombing had proved its worth in World War II, though at a steep cost, tactical air power had never before accomplished such complete devastation of fielded units in detail. Despite tasking its forces with attriting Iraqi ground forces by 50% before the ground invasion began, more than had been expected or asked of air power in any previous conflict, the U.S. military expected these results mostly from the same dumb munitions that had failed to deliver effectively since World War II. The surprise superstar of the war was the humble laser-guided bomb, which soon proved efficient at destroying tanks, a feat thought technically unfeasible pre-war. Given their low cost compared to dedicated anti-tank missiles like Mavericks, many F-111s were hastily devoted to tank plinking for much of the war. Ultimately, the power of the precision-guided munition hadn't been fully understood even by the military that pioneered them. This scenario is representative of the 4-day ground-air campaign, reducing the numbers involved, and consequently compressing the timeline to something manageable by the lone strike planner, i.e., me. The rain of steel you can unleash is staggering, but ultimately just a sampling of the colossal destruction coalition air power historically wrought. Alright, so that is the overview. We're going to be playing the coalition side. The side with most of the advantages in this scenario, obviously. The briefing is brief, as it were. Let's see if we can close this down a bit. There we are. Let's go. So, the coalition forces are embarking on the final stage of Kuwait's liberation. Iraqi ground forces are beginning to evacuate Kuwait, retreating north into Iraq. Now is the time to pursue and eliminate these forces as we sweep north, liberating Kuwaiti cities and oil fields. Iraq established invasion sector headquarters in each overrun Kuwaiti city and oil field. The elimination of these centers will allow for returning these areas to Kuwaiti and coalition control. This must be accomplished using coalition ground forces and air assets, as most naval SSM capability has been exhausted. The major evacuation route is along Iraq-Kuwait Highway 8, with a closely parallel rail line. A heavy concentration of Iraqi tanks and infantry has been identified as moving into Iraq via this corridor. Railway yards should also be targeted to further disrupt Iraqi force movement. Your mission is to 1. Perform reconnaissance to determine the location of critical Iraqi transportation facilities. 2. Eliminate all Iraqi sector control headquarters within Kuwait. 3. Strike Iraqi military ground units heading north out of Kuwait and further into Iraq as the situation allows. And 4. Destroy Iraqi railway assets. You can expect resistance let's try that again. You can expect resistance from fanatical mechanized and infantry ground forces, air units, and SAM and AAA assets. It is important that due to damage and maintenance failures, Iraq's radar capabilities are intermittent with about 50% operational rate at any given time. Iraq's former navy is no longer a threat. Rules of engagement are free for any Iraqi units encountered, and MCON is local commander's discretion. Alrighty. Yes, a brief briefing. Funny how that works. Evening, good day, Lothadan, 24309. All right, so this is our theater of operations, of course. We've got Saudi Arabia, we've got units in the Mediterranean Sea, we've got an airbase in Turkey, we've got some friendly units, or, well, I won't say friendly, but they are not hostile to us in Iran. And then we, of course, have the Persian Gulf filled up with coalition forces, as well as the enemy forces in Kuwait and Iraq. Now, like I said earlier, the goal of this scenario, the goal of the playthrough today is to preview the scenario. We're not trying to play the scenario and beat it all the way through. We're just trying to give you an overview of what it's going to be like, what the gameplay is, what you can expect, and that sort of thing as the full expansion it drops next week. I do apologize for missing that that alert that came up. Again, some of these alerts trigger notifications in chat that I can see after the fact. If I'm not staring at the stream on my other screen, I do miss the alert, so I do apologize for that. But if that was a follow or a subscription or anything like that, well, first of all, sorry for missing it, and second of all, thank you for following, or whatever that was. Not used to the alternative unit icons. Well, I've been using these since I started playing, and I'm kind of used to them by now. I can switch them up if that makes a difference to anybody. Although that might confuse me. I am a simple man after all. All right, so we're going to preview the scenario here. We're going to go through the order of battle, looking at all of the forces on our side that we can see and all the enemy forces that we can currently see, and then we'll play about an hour or two of in-game time before calling it a day. Alrighty, so first off, let's start in the Persian Gulf, where we've got most of our interesting assets. So as we were told in the briefing, the naval forces of Iraq have pretty much been dealt with. There's nothing that we need to worry about in terms of missile boats or submarines or anything like that. So we've got quite the coalition force, 4 battle groups, very close to the coastline. Looks like all of them are set to pretty much get right up to the coast with their current movement orders. Starting from the east and moving our way west, we've got the USS Ranger Task Group, 7 units. As was also mentioned in the briefing, most of our surface-to-surface missiles have been depleted. There's only 5 Tomahawks on this group. Some Harpoons, which at this state in history are only a sea attack. And then, of course, we've got a regular cadre of air defense missiles. So from an attack standpoint, aside from the aircraft on the carrier, we're not going to have a lot of other options with which to reach out and impact the forces in Kuwait or into Iraq. Are there going to be land units? Well, Raven UK-12, there are land units in this scenario. As you can see, we've got 4 groups to the south of Kuwait. There's a Saudi army group consisting of 3 infantry platoons, 1 mechanized infantry, and 3 infantry platoons, 1 mechanized infantry platoon of M113s, and 2 mechanized infantry platoon. Say that 10 times fast. 2 mechanized infantry platoons with M2A2 Bradleys. And then if we look down further south, we've got the 2nd Marine Div and the 1st Marine Div with both the same loadout here with the M60A3 Pattons, some artillery and more infantry, plus some AAA. And on the east coast, the Saudi Army Group B. So there are some ground units in the scenario. Of course, ground units are not, to the best of my knowledge, modeled as closely as, say, aerial combat, the damage to ships, that sort of thing. It's kind of a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing. So they're not as tightly modeled as, say, damage to a ship would be, but they are in the scenario most definitely, and they most definitely are in the game in general. All right, so the Ranger Group, again, not a lot of surface-to-surface power outside of the aircraft that are on the actual carrier. Looking at the carrier itself, we've got a plethora of aircraft, seemingly split up into small, tiny groups. Of course, we're in the 1990s, early 1990s, so a lot of the Cold War hardware that we're used to from the 80s and 90s is available to us in this scenario, including the S3 Viking, a classic anti-submarine warfare resource that is near and dear to my heart. Had a lot of fun with these back in the day in Jane's Fleet Command and earlier Harpoon scenarios as well. But in this scenario, they're set up actually for ground attack with 2 2,000-pound regular dumb bombs. Now, of course, we can ready these planes up with different loadouts. The carrier, of course, having many options in terms of armament available to us with which to customize our aircraft. But in terms of anti-submarine warfare in this scenario, again, the briefing said we don't have any to worry about, so we're going to take that briefing at its word and leave our anti-submarine warfare resources set up for ground attack. All right, moving on down the list, we've got some KA-6 intruders set up for aerial refueling. Now it's a bit of an interesting setup on the carrier. A lot of these aircraft are set up in tiny groups. Usually they're grouped together in larger groupings. So we're just going to go through these as quickly as we can to get a quick overview. It's a little confusing though the way they're laid out. The EA-6 Prowlers again with offensive jamming capabilities. We've got F-14 Tomcats, both the A and the B variant. The A is set up with light Sparrow loadout, with just 2 Sparrows and 2 Sidewinders. We've got some F-18 Hornets getting ready with a heavy Sparrow loadout, which again is 4 Sparrows and 2 Sidewinders. Helicopter setup, some SH-60s for maritime surveillance, of course E-2C Hawkeyes for airborne early warning. More Hornets with Mark 77 incendiary weapons. 1 nautical mile range. Again, a lot of the weapons that we're going to see in this scenario are pretty close range, not as standoffish as we're used to from more recent playthroughs like the King of the Border playthrough. So we're going to have to get down and dirty with a lot of these targets that we're going to be attacking. Some F-14Bs with a light Phoenix loadout, 2 Phoenixes, 2 Sparrows, and 2 Sidewinders. The Phoenix, of course, being, well, quite the game changer when it comes to aerial combat, at least against the forces we're going to be facing here. 120 nautical mile range. Reach out and touch somebody is pretty much the description of that weapon. There's nothing the Iraqis have, as far as I'm aware, that can even come close to matching that for range. So we have 3 Tomcats set up in that loadout. If we look down further, we've got more helicopters, some A-6 intruders set up with Mark 83 general purpose bombs, 1,000 pounders, more Tomcats, more Hornets. Everybody is set up pretty much as we want them to be. Although if I was playing this through, if this wasn't a preview stream, if I was playing this through as a full playthrough, I'd probably take some time and change some of these loadouts from light to heavy. For example, if we take one of our Tomcats and look at the options available to us, we can go with a heavy Barcat mode, which is, of course, 2 extra Phoenixes than what we have on the light Barcat mode. Just gives us a little extra punch. But since we're doing a preview stream today, I don't want to take up too much time just filling with my units because we're not going to be playing the scenario through till its end. But if I was playing it through, that would be something I would consider doing just to give me a bit more punch with the units that I had in the sky. Plenty of these helicopters set up with anti-submarine warfare loadouts. Probably not going to be useful to us during this scenario, as we were told earlier. Nothing that we need to worry about on or under the sea from the Iraqi standpoint. Moving on to the west. Yes, we have the Missouri Battle Group. Good old Mighty Mo. Now, this battle group has again been depleted by the use of its surface-to-surface missiles earlier in the battle. So we have a limited amount of Tomahawks available to us, 11 109Cs and 12 109Ds. Still quite capable, even though we are about... these weapons are from the late 90s, or sorry, late 80s, early 90s, range of 460 nautical miles, capable of hitting land structures only. Good enough to reach out and touch pretty much anything in this scenario. I believe the range, goes all the way through Iraq. So even if we want to use 1 or 2 of these Tomahawks to hit something up north, we certainly have the ability to do so. What I am more interested in, however, with this battle group is the range of the Missouri's 406mm guns. Something we have not seen in the more modern scenarios is artillery from the ocean. Let's see here. Where are you? There we are. So, of course, we've got 9 barrels, 9 406mm barrels on the Missouri herself, capable of reaching 21 nautical miles away, which is hopefully going to come in handy. Let's do our little range tool, Control D. Let's see, 21 nautical miles. So if we're right off the coast. Yeah, we can reach roughly this area here. So if we get the Missouri battle group in nice and close, if there's any targets in this in that little 21 nautical mile range, we can certainly launch fire our guns at them and get some short bombardment as well. Something we might have to do given the fact we really don't have any more Tomahawk missiles. In terms of other weaponry, we of course have some harpoons, not useful for ground attack. We have our regular cadre of close and medium range surface-to-air missiles, and that's pretty much it. And again, guys, as I've said in streams previous, if any of you are kind of baffled by the interface and how I'm making certain things happen, like, for example, the range finding tool, Control D, if I don't tell you what I'm doing, or if you're curious of how I'm making things work, just let me know in chat and I'll try to explain it. The interface, a lot of people, I get a lot of comments on my YouTube videos that the interface is difficult to understand, difficult to learn. But in my opinion, if you've had enough experience with it, it makes a lot of sense. So if you've got any questions, if you're new to the game, or if you're kind of curious as to what's going on or how I'm making certain things happen, just let me know in chat and we'll take some time and go over that as well. All right, just to the north, northwest of the Missouri Battle Group, we have the Coalition UK Task Force. Looks to be comprised of Type 42s, Type 22s, Type 42 destroyers, Type 22 frigates, as well as a Spruance-class destroyer. Let's take a look at some of these. Starting with the HMS Gloucester of Her Majesty's Royal Navy. Now, I do believe, even though this is a Type 42 from 1990, apparently, according to the database, I don't believe we have much shore bombardment capability with these weapons. Let's just take a look here. We've got a 114mm gun. Yeah, that's all we have, with a range of 10 nautical miles. So compared to the Missouri's guns, we're severely lacking range and punch as well. We're not going to be getting these guys in too close because they're not going to be able to do too much for us if they get close. Looking at the Spruance destroyer, same assumption. I don't believe its gun is high caliber enough to really do much damage yet. It's 127mm, 5-inch effectively. 11 nautical miles is the range. I mean, if we really nestle in here into this little alcove, this little bay here, with a depth of 7 to 13 feet, then maybe we can get some damage done. But the Missouri is definitely going to be our short bombarder if we need that kind of firepower. Now, the main punch of this group is, well, we've got some Exocet surface-to-surface missiles, some Harpoon surface attack missiles. The downside to this is, unfortunately, these can only attack surface ships and nothing else. I think with the more modern Harpoons, if we look in the database for a more modern set of Harpoon, I do believe some of these can attack other than, yeah, there we are. So if we look at the 2003 variant of the Harpoon, we can see that it can actually attack surface ships, land structures, and runways. The older variant, however, what we're looking at here on the UK battle group is the Harpoon 1C. This variant can only attack surface ships. So the capability of these Harpoons being useful, say, 15 years in the future is coming, but in the time frame of this scenario, it's just going to be pretty much useless to us in this scenario because there will be no Iraqi surface fleet to deal with. In terms of other weaponry, we've got a regular cadre of short and medium range SAMs, and that's pretty much it. The final group in the Persian Gulf is where we're going to get a lot of our punch out of. We've got two carriers, the Midway and the Theodore Roosevelt. The Venerable Midway. Now, like the briefing said, the scenario has been cut down in size to make it more manageable for the player and make it and kind of cram the scenario into a 36-hour time frame. So the aircraft available to us, even with two carriers in this battle group, still only about 67 aircraft. The Ranger task group has 45. So we've got about 100 plus aircraft, just over 100 aircraft available to us from our carrier battle groups. Again, that's a little out of character for say, marrying that up with real-life capabilities. But for the sake of the scenario, things have been cut down a little bit to make it a little more manageable. What we're going to see here on the Midway and the Roosevelt are effectively what we saw on the Ranger. We've got F-18s, we've got Prowlers, we've got Intruders, we've got a regular cadre of helicopters, Tomcats, Hornets. A lot of them are set up with regular dumb bomb loadouts. We've got 500-pound bombs on these Hornets, for example. Heavy Sparrow loadouts being currently readied for these 3 Hornets. Our Prowlers are set up with jamming, no anti-radiation missiles. Again, if I was playing this through as a regular playthrough, not a preview, I would be taking some of these A6 intruders and changing their loadout from dumb bombs to, well, probably Shrikes, which are anti-radiation missiles. Nice range on them for this scenario, 25 nautical miles. Valid targets are radars only, but still it gives us a nice standoff ability to take out any radars that are in the area, especially surface-to-air missile radars. What we're not seeing with these default loadouts that come with the scenario is a lot of standoff weapons that give us the ability to fire and forget. Now, one of the more important aircraft that are in the scenario, in my opinion, are the A6 intruders that are loaded with the forward-looking infrared ability, like these guys here. Let's find that. Here she is, the AN/AAS-33 Tram. It's infrared navigation / attack forward-looking infrared. 30 nautical mile range. 2nd generation imaging. So pretty modern for the 1990s, which is the time frame for this scenario, the early 90s. It is for surface search, ground search, and for both fixed and mobile units. Now, if you've been watching my previous streams and my streams here on the Slytherin Group Twitch page for a while, you will recognize that I have quite the massive love affair with the ability of the optical imaging on the F-35 to give us accurate and awesome intelligence. In this scenario, what we are severely lacking is the ability to identify units that are not currently on the board. We know there's SAMs here. We know there are units escaping across Highway 8, which is this reddish line that goes up into Iraq through Kuwait. We know there are units there, and we're not going to be as easily able to find them because our technology is certainly limited by what our ability is limited by the technology that we have in this scenario. So one of the most important units, not because of the bombs it can carry, but because of the optics that it has, will be the A6 intruders armed with the forward-looking infrared ability, like the ones here. Now, these ones are also armed with laser-guided bombs. Range of 4 nautical miles. So, while they have the ability to perform some pretty powerful reconnaissance for us, fighting SAMs, for example, taking on the suppression of enemy air defense or the destruction of enemy air defense missions that are probably going to be required to get through Kuwait and into Iraq, not the best task for these A6s because laser-guided bomb requires you to be 4 nautical miles away and stay pretty steady with that laser locked on its target for the bomb to actually do what you want it to do. So, the A6 intruder with the forward-looking infrared, great for reconnaissance. We're going to hold our breath on the ability of these laser-guided bombs to actually help us do much against any sort of mobile units like SAMs. Alright, so that is effectively the loadout of our forces in the Persian Gulf. Again, the 2 carriers are pretty much identically laid out. The units are split in a very unique way. You don't often see loadouts at an airbase or a carrier split in such small subsections like this. But there's quite a lot of capabilities here, whether it's dumb bombs, whether it's tankers, whether it's some optics that are pretty advanced for the day, like the A6s we just looked at. We've got a little bit of everything here that'll allow us to accomplish the mission at hand. Now, in terms of defensibility of the Roosevelt and Midway, of course, this is where we're going to have a lot of our guided missile cruisers. As you can see in the drop-down of the group composition window on the right-hand side, we have 1, 2, 3 CGs, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the designation for a guided missile cruiser. Guided missile cruiser, indeed. Finally got something right, Doc. Good job. All right, and we have 2 Ticonderoga class cruisers as well, very well known for their Aegis radar systems, their ability to track and fire multiple targets at the same time. So, with these guys in this group defending the Roosevelt and Midway, we have a very capable set of short, medium, and long-range missiles available to us. If we pull back a tiny bit on this group, we can see the little pink circle. If I hit Control-D for the range tool, roughly 100 nautical miles on that range circle, meaning we have some sort of surface-to-air missile here that gives us 100 nautical mile range on air targets, which is going to come in handy because you can see that circle covers pretty much 2/3, 3/4 of Iraq. Yeah, we don't have that missile coverage anywhere else. The Roosevelt and Midway group is definitely our most stacked anti-air asset in the Persian Gulf. Alrighty. Now we talked a little earlier about the ground units that are just south of Iraq. As the briefing stated, our goal here is to hit the invasion headquarters in Kuwait, which will then flip certain areas of Kuwait into effectively captured status, which means they will turn blue and they will no longer be available to the enemy. While we're doing that, the Saudi Arabian army plus the 1st and 2nd Marine divisions will be encroaching upon Iraq as well, and we're going to do our best to stay one step ahead of them to keep them as safe as possible. They're pretty well armed. We've got Patton tanks in both of the Marine divisions. We've got capable infantry fighting vehicles in the M2A2 Bradley. Friar Oakenshield, thank you for the 3 bits, sir. Thank you so much. So our goal here is not just to defend these guys from air attack, which may or may not be coming, but to also stay one step ahead and make sure they don't walk blindly into enemy units that are trying to take Highway 8 out of the country. All right, so that is the immediate zone around Kuwait, but that is definitely not the limit of the order of battle in this scenario. There's a lot of air ability in the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, as well as in the Mediterranean and in Turkey, that we still have yet to go through. Are there any UK aircraft? Oh, hang on, Raven UK. We're getting to that. There is, we've seen the Coalition UK Task Force with some, I'm not sure how useful these guys are going to be honest with you. Their air defense ability is moderate. Let's see here. They have a range of 60 nautical miles on their Sea Darts and roughly 6 nautical miles on their Sea Wolves for anti-air defense. Sea Sparrow's probably roughly the same, about 14 nautical miles. So close in air defense ability. But in terms of what they're going to be able to do in this scenario, there's not a lot. Their surface attack ability is quite limited, so they're mainly on a defensive posture. Now, when we're talking about UK resources, of course, coalition forces in general, well, there is definitely going to be some UK resources. We're getting there. We're getting there. And that is actually one of the more interesting parts of this Desert Storm campaign set that is being released next week that interests me personally. I mean, I've done a lot of command content over the course of 3 years, and I usually have this little joke I throw into any scenario that deals with NATO or North American NORAD scenarios, which is usually the Canadian forces are not represented in any way that makes them valuable to the outcome of the scenario. But just like the real Desert Storm, there are indeed coalition forces, including some Canadian forces and UK forces that we get to play with, and that as a proud Canadian, that makes my day. So, just a little aside there, as my heart overflows with gratitude to whoever added those units into the scenario. Now, looking at some of the resources that we have, or some of the air bases down south of Kuwait, we have a lot of things to go through. So we're going to start with the northernmost airbase, King Fahd International Airport. 18 aircraft available to us. Looks to be mainly American aircraft. We've got 9 Thunderbolts. Some loaded out with IR Mavericks, some loaded out with electrical optical Mavericks. Difference being 8 nautical mile range on the IR-based Mavericks. Whoopsie. And 6 nautical mile range on the EO-based, on the electrical optical-based Mavericks. So a slight range extension on these Thunderbolts versus these. Might be handy for SAM hunting, perhaps. We'll have to see how that works out. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe one of these is fire and forget, and one of them is not fire and forget. Trying to think back to my DCS experience in the A10. I think the IR version is fire and forget. You lock up your target, you fire your weapon, and you turn around, and it's A-okay. Whereas electrical optical requires you to keep some sort of lock while you're actually firing the weapon. I don't know if that's defined in the database entry, but just going from experience with the A10 in general over the years, I think that's accurate. I could be wrong, though. I have been known to be wrong before. Moving on down the line, we've got some Recon variants of the F4 Phantom. Now, some of you may remember my playthrough of, what was it, Team Yankee a scenario based in Vietnam, and we had a lot of recon planes very similarly kitted out. I think the carrier-based recon plane, the Vigilante, was one of them, with side-scanning radar, with capable first-generation cameras. And my experience in that Vietnam scenario was that the recon was very, very difficult to do in a way that actually got us valuable information without getting my plane shot down. So when I see 6 recon-capable Phantoms, I'm kind of struck with both their utility and impending doom. We've got a 5 nautical mile range on their first-generation TV cameras for recon. We've got side-looking airborne radar. We've got ground mapping radar, which in my experience is not very effective at finding targets. So I'm not sure if we're actually going to be using these Phantoms. I fear I put them into danger to hunt down SAMs and to hunt down ground units, and they're going to get themselves shot down. But either way, we have them available to us if we want to try. But previous experience makes me a bit leery of using them, especially in a hot combat zone. Further on down, we've got some EC-130H Compass Call offensive ECM aircraft, very capable of rolling out a lot of jamming over the Kuwait and Iraqi borders. Going to be using them, of course, as offensive weapons safely behind the Saudi Arabian border. And our final entry here at King Fahd is some forward observer aircraft, the A-10 Thunderbolt, armed with general purpose bombs. Yeah, general purpose 500-pound bombs. Now, I don't think the O in front of the A-10, indicating a forward observer, means any functional difference in what the capabilities of the aircraft is. I think it's just a designation. I don't see any extra optics or imaging capabilities compared to the regular A-10. So I think it's just a use case scenario. These guys are just regular A-10s with the ability to, or with the expectation that it can be forward observers instead of ground-based attack aircraft, but they can be ground attackers if we need them to be. Hey Dead Meat, how you doing, sir? That is correct, Pixel. March 28th is the date. We went through the trailer at the beginning of the stream about 45 minutes ago, and March 20th was the date that was given in the trailer, so I think that's fairly accurate. I am a Kanake. Sometimes the accent sneaks through, but through and through Canadian. Oh, and now we start the Canadian jokes. Okay, I get it. It's okay. I should apologize for getting us on that topic, as a good Canadian should. It's a 2-seater A-10, eh? I guess that would be the difference. Sensor-wise, though, the database seems to indicate that they're pretty much identical to a regular A-10. Can we tell if that's an accurate picture? It looks like it's a single-seater, but again, very similar to the A-10s that we have available to us. I think if we really want to test that, if we ready arm them, can we change their loadouts? No, we can't. Can we change the loadouts of these guys? No, we can't. All right, so that's an interesting point, actually. We don't seem to have any extra loadouts for any of these A-10s, meaning they get one strike, and that's it. They have nothing else to reload themselves with. Due South is amazing. First season of Due South, second season Due South, seminal for Canadian television. If you ever want to do a study on how Canada works, watch a displaced Mountie in Chicago. It's pretty awesome. Alrighty, moving on down south to Dhahran, King Abdulaziz Air Base. 23 aircraft. Looks to be, again, more American aircraft, of course. We've got 9 F-15 E-Strike Eagles armed with a variety of dumb bombs and laser-guided bombs. Now this is, again, just like the A6 we looked at earlier on the Midway and the Roosevelt carrier group. We have some optics that are of interest to us. Of course, we're familiar with the Lantern Pod. That's still a variant of that pod, an upgraded version, obviously, is still used today, I do believe. Or maybe that's, actually I shouldn't say that. I don't know if that's migrated to the Lightning Pod or the Sniper Pod, but at least as you progress through the years in command, you'll see the Lantern Pod progress with you to a certain degree. Let's see if I can pick that up here. Indeed, we can see the Lantern Pod at least up until 1998, which is a different variant for the F-14. So there are a few different variants of the Lantern Pod, and then, of course, probably replaced by the Lightning Pod as we get further into history, closer to current date. But either way, we've got two variants of the Lantern pod that are interesting to us in this group of Strike Eagles. And we have the Lantern Navigation pod, which is forward-looking infrared. Then we have the Lantern Navigation and Attack pod, which is forward-looking infrared. And the key differences here are 15 nautical mile range and forward-looking infrared for surface search, ground search, for mobile units, and for fixed units as well. Second-generation imaging. Keeping that in mind, if we look at the Navigation and Attack pod, slightly different. We have 30 nautical mile range for attack forward-looking infrared, which gives us surface search, ground search for both mobile and fixed units. Second-generation imaging again, so same quality, but double the range. So again, if we're looking for something that gives us a very good sense of intelligence data, excuse me, if we're looking for something that could, sorry about that, guys. If we're looking for something that gives us the ability to suss out the enemy ground forces and to get accurate intelligence from a safe distance, these three Eagles with the Lantern Navigation and Attack pod are also what we're going to be looking at using aside from the A6s on the carrier group. The Navigation pod, not exactly the best for that task. The Attack pod is better. You won't start with the Canadian Navy jokes. Oh man, don't insult our canoe. We only got 3 of them, and one's in the shop for repair. All right, moving on further down. KC-135E Strato tankers for tanking. Got some F-15Cs for air attack. Again, light Sparrow loadout, 2 Sparrows, 2 Sidewinders. 3 E-3B sentries for airborne early warning, and more tankers than the KC-10. Alrighty, now this is where it gets interesting. If you're still out there, Raven UK, we're looking at Rifa's Airbase in, I believe is that Bahrain? If I zoom in here, Bahrain, yes it is. Okay, we have 23 aircraft here, and this is where we get into differing coalition forces. We've got the Jaguar GR-1A, of course, from the United Kingdom. Laser Spot Tracker, Mark 1 eyeball, very capable radar warning receiver, so you know when they're shooting at you. In terms of loadouts, though, we've got some fairly standard 1,000-pound bomb loadouts, 1 nautical mile range, 2 of them per Jaguar. And then again, we get down to the bottom of the screen here with 3 Jaguars armed with a Recon pod, which again gives me, it kind of sets my, my spider senses are tingling when I see things like this. We've got a 5 nautical mile range on a generic visual reconnaissance camera, and then we have 5 nautical mile range on a generic infrared line scanner. Again, meant for recon. And we certainly can try to use them, but my fear is, again, we're gonna be losing a lot of aircraft to unknown SAMs, because the SAMs are going to outrange us with their radar and with their SAM capabilities. So we might not use these Jaguars for what they're assigned for. And if we were playing these through as a playthrough as opposed to a preview, I might rearm them with dumb bombs, cluster bombs, or rockets, or even just general purpose bombs like the ones above. So we do have 12 UK aircraft here in Bahrain. And of course, the star of the show for me personally are the CF-18s, the B variant, which is the dual seater. We've got 6 available to us from 439 Squadron, Mark 82 general purpose bombs. Now, for those of you slightly familiar with the Canadian history of the F-18, back in the early 90s, we were pretty much running the stock variant of the Hornet as it came off the assembly line earlier in the 80s. So there's, in terms of smart weaponry, there's not a lot here that we can actually use in this scenario. Again, they can be loaded out with harpoons, they can be loaded out with Sparrows. Everything else is pretty much unguided, like the cluster bombs, the rockets, and the general purpose bombs. So in terms of capability, they're really nothing special. But in terms of national sentimentality, I mean, everything I'm going to do in this scenario, if I was playing this through in private, I would use my 6 F-18 Hornets for every darn thing in the scenario. But we have quite the loadout capabilities, at least in with the magazines in store in Bahrain here. We can change them over to airborne warriors with a heavy Sparrow loadout, or we can keep them as close-range ground attackers with rockets, cluster bombs, or general purpose bombs. I'm literally, I'm trying to, when I first loaded this up and I saw that they actually had CF-18s in there, I actually almost squealed. But we're trying to remain professional for this stream, so we will not let out any squeals of joy. Hey, if you don't have tomahawks, sentimentality is the second best tactic. All right, now we have two Falcon 20F ECMs, which are, they're UK based as well. They're from the UK. Offensive ECM training and target towing, apparently. That's what they're capable of. We have Comment, an ELINT, communications jammer, and some OECM. All right, so very capable platform for, again, sitting safely behind Saudi Arabian lines and doing some jamming and some ELINT gathering for us. As well, we've got an E8 Joint Stars aircraft. Very capable in the ELINT category. As well as two Sentry AEW aircraft from the UK as well. So I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Raven UK, the coalition aircraft are mainly focused here at Riyadh Airbase on in Bahrain. So I know that's it for Canadian aircraft. I think that might be it for UK aircraft as well. But you have a nice little complement of ground attack and airborne information gathering aircraft as well. Here at Doha, we've got nothing in Qatar. Nothing is listed there. We've got no munitions either, so we can't even use that as a rebasing location for any of our aircraft. Further on down in the UAE. Yeah, Raven UK. Sorry, ELINT is electronic intelligence, like DRN61 says. Effectively, the way to use those in command is to place them behind friendly lines, well protected. You don't want them egressing or ingressing into enemy-controlled airspace. But you leave them a nice distance away, and they're able to pick up radio communications. They're able to sense radar emissions, and they're able to effectively paint a broad picture, not a very tight picture, but a broad picture of what the enemy is doing in terms of electronics. Down in the UAE, we've got 3 airbases with aircraft. You can always tell an airbase from an aircraft because they have the little yellow chevron sign. Any airbase that doesn't have that means there's nothing at the airbase, at least aircraft-wise. But I always like to go through all the airbases in the scenario and just check the magazines out, because sometimes, like Sharjah International Airport here in the UAE, you'll actually have some munitions that you might actually be able to use. In this case, we've got 6 AN ALQ-131 defensive ECM pods, which doesn't give us a lot of options, mind you, but it's always nice to know if there's an airbase we can actually use for something other than fuel. The AWACS aircraft Raven UK, they're more active sensing aircraft. If we pull back to the UK sentries here, we can see sensor profile wise, they have an ELINT capability as well. And comparing and contrasting the ELINT, for example, on the Sentry aircraft with, say, the Joint Stars or the Falcon 20Fs that we saw earlier, I'm not really sure which one's better and how they quantify themselves as being better in game. The database entry is really all we've got to go off of, which can be quite sparse. But the range generally is 500 nautical miles for electronic intelligence gathering. The main purpose of the Sentry, though, I would say, is not necessarily its ELINT capabilities, but of course its ground and air search radar, or surface and air search radar, which has a range of 350 nautical miles. So the Sentry can do an ELINT, has ELINT capabilities. If we compare the description of this ELINT capability, which is late 1980s technology, air search, surface search, specific emitter ID. We go back to, say, the Falcon ELINT aircraft here, we can see that it says the same exact thing. So I would guess that the ELINT capabilities of the Sentry from the UK and the Falcon from the UK are fairly similar, if not identical. If we just take a quick look at the Joint Stars aircraft as well, I do believe it is similar. Indeed it is. Air search, surface search, specific emitter ID. So in terms of the difference between the Sentry and the Falcon, for example, one of them is most definitely centered around an active radar that gives us a lot of different active information than the passive ELINT capabilities that all 3 of those variants we just looked at have the ability to give us. Alrighty, do we have units at Diego Garcia? Good question, and I don't believe we do. Yeah, nothing out in the Indian Ocean or in the Arabian Sea or wherever Diego Garcia is. Somewhere in this area, I do believe. There are, however, scenarios in this expansion that do take into consideration Diego Garcia. I'm not allowed to play any other scenarios, but we can go through some of the scenario descriptions on the main screen before we finish here if anyone's interested in that. I do know there's a scenario that mentions Diego Garcia from its scenario description, so I can guarantee that there probably is at least one where you will have Diego Garcia assets used in the Desert Storm conflict. All right, moving back on down to the UAE here, getting off track a little bit, but that's good. I like it when people ask questions, especially questions I know how to answer. That's always appreciated. But again, if there's any UI questions or any general questions about the game too, I know a lot of people are intimidated by the look of this game, and it's not a first-person shooter, obviously. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the interface as well going forward. Looking at El Bantine here, we got some KC-135 tankers. Moving over to El Dhafra. We've got 9 F-16s, a Block 30 variant, a Block 32 variant, a Block 25 variant. The different blocks, I'm not exactly sure the differences here, but they all seem to be loaded out with the exact same setup. AIM-9 Sidewinders heavy, 6 Sidewinders each, defensive VCM pod, and drop tanks. So they're identically set up. Do we have any other options on these guys? If we ready arm them, we do not have... There are no other munitions at this airbase, including reloads for the Sidewinder. All right, so that's good to know. Second thing we want to check out here is from El Dhafra. If we Control D for the range tool and look up to the very border of Kuwait, it's about 450 nautical miles. The Falcon does not have an amazing range in and of itself. Roughly speaking, let's take a look at about, if it was loaded out with a ground attack loadout, we'd have about a 425 nautical mile strike radius, give or take. That seems to be roughly the maximum strike profile range that it has available to it. So getting to the border of Kuwait for these F-16s is going to be, well, it's going to require tankers. And on the way back, we can probably look at rebasing them because El Dhafra has no magazines, which means that when they land at El Dhafra, they'll get refueled, but they'll have nothing else to rearm themselves with and effectively be useless for the rest of the battle. They didn't have the AMRAAM in this time frame. I think historically the AMRAAM was in effect. I think I read something. Can't remember if it was on Wikipedia or in one of the Desert Storm books that I've read. But I think the AMRAAM did exist, but it was kind of hush-hush. No one really knew about it. And it was used. But as far as I know, everything in this scenario is Sparrow-based. At least for radar-guided missiles. Now, the question I want to answer right now for El Dhafra is, we've got 9 Falcons that have no reloads available to them. What is available to us in terms of munitions at other bases? And we can see here at King Abdulaziz Air Base, we have 78 AIM-9 Sidewinders with the M variant, which is, I think that's the variant we were using on those Falcons. So we have some Sidewinders available to us at King Abdulaziz. Look at Rifa. We have the L variant of the Sidewinder and no M's. So we can't land them there. If we look at King Fahd, I think we looked at this before. Yeah, there's really nothing here. L variants, that's about it. All right, so if we were to use these F-16s, which I think in this preview we're probably not going to because Sidewinders and limited range, not going to be of much use to us. But if we were going to use them in say, a full playthrough, first of all, we'd have to look at tanking for them somewhere between the United Arab Emirates and the edge of Kuwait. Apologies, guys. Sorry, just the wife trying to take the kids out to the park, and might be a few noises in the background over the next few minutes as you hear them escaping the apartment. Sometimes the escape goes completely stealthily. Sometimes there are a few noises. I guess if we were playing the scenario, we could kind of chalk that up to the cries of our enemies, but unfortunately we're still in the preview mode, looking at the order of battle. All right. So if we were going to use those F-16s, I think we'd look at tanking them probably somewhere in this area, maybe slightly further back, as well as rebasing them upon egress from the combat zone into Abdulaziz Air Base, because there's actually stores here they can use. All right. The final base in the UAE that we're interested in is Al Ain International Airport with 3 aircraft, and again, KC-135 tankers. Kids are escaping. Yeah. Well, I don't want to get too far off, but I will say that when I stream in the afternoon, I've got a small family, wife, 3 kids, 4, 2, and 5 months old. 4 years, 2 years, 5 months old. And generally they stay in the bedroom area. But because we're going to be streaming for 3 hours today through the dinner time area, my wife wanted to take the kids out of the house so that A, it's quiet, and 2, the kids actually have a chance to eat dinner around the right time. So they are escaping right now in the sense of getting out of our hair so we can stream without interruption, and so my family can eat while I'm still streaming. And I have time to stream? Sometimes, yes. Just a little aside here. Usually with the earlier streams I do in the afternoon, it's easier because, we're not bridging dinner time, but today is a bit different. They have made their escape though, so we should have a quiet environment for the rest of the stream, which I do apologize for, but again, everyone's got something else going on, and just so happens that my family couldn't escape stealthily today. Their cloaking devices were they didn't work. But either way, back to the preview. She must be a saint. She's working on it. Work in progress. All right, so we've taken a look at the forces along the the eastern side of Saudi Arabia, through Bahrain, through the UAE. Moving into the center of Saudi Arabia by Riyadh, I believe. If we wait for the map to catch up. Yep, there it is, Riyadh, which is the capital of Saudi Arabia. We've got 9 aircraft, 3 F-16s, and 6 F-15E Strike Eagles. Yes, Captain Pugwash, this is a 36-hour scenario. It is a 36-hour scenario. Sorry. All right. Sorry, I just had to cough there. Again, it seems like when I get talking, I don't drink enough water, so I'm getting a little coffee right now. And we'll see if we can fix that with a bit of hydration. So if you hear me suddenly cut off, that's because I'm muting the mic so I don't cough in your ear. All right, so we've got 3 F-16s, 3 Sparrows, 3 F-16s set up with an anti-air loadout, 2 Sparrows, 2 Sidewinders per F-15Es, again, Lantern navigation pods without the attack pods. So again, we have some moderately decent optical intelligence abilities through these Strike Eagles, but not the best available to us that we saw earlier on the Strike Eagles with the attack pod, the Lantern attack pod. Have some vodka. Maybe later. Interestingly enough, though, we've got these F-15Es set up with a standard scud hunting loadout, which includes 4 Sidewinders, 12 500-pound bombs, and of course the Lantern attack pods, and plenty of drop tanks and conformal fuel tanks. So if we're looking for scuds, which I don't believe this mission specifically requires us of using these F-15s for, we have an official scud hunting setup for these F-15Es. Alrighty. So that is, looking at air resources that are nice and close by, effectively, these units here are going to be very easy to use. The tankers that we have available to us are going to allow the westernmost forces up at King Faisal Air Base and down south in King Khalid Air Base, as well as over in Turkey at Incirlik, not sure how to pronounce that, but over here in Turkey at Incirlik Air Base as well. We're going to need some massive tanking, as well as with the Kennedy and Saratoga carrier groups in the Mediterranean. Looking at King Faisal Air Base, 3 aircraft available to us. Again, 3 aircraft might sound kind of weird in a scenario recreating Desert Storm, but like the briefing said, the order of battle and the scope of the scenario has been cut to make it smaller so that it's easier for the player to handle in a compressed time frame. These F-15Es are set up with lantern navigation pods, some cluster bombs, and the regular set of conformal fuel tanks. Now we have 1 nautical mile range on these cluster bomb units, which again means that in terms of SAM hunting, not the greatest available to us, although the lantern pod does or should allow us the ability to find the SAMs before they find us, assuming they're shorter range variants. Down south, at King Khalid Air Base, 4 aircraft available to us. Aha, finally something a little different. We have 2 U-2 Recon aircraft. The TR-1A Dragon Lady, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe this was upgraded not too long ago into the U-2S variant, perhaps? I think there was an engine upgrade done that took this variant into the U-2 nomenclature. And we have a U-2R down below, which is effectively the same aircraft, just a little different on the engines. We have radar, 100 nautical mile range, surface search, good for fixed and mobile units, range of 100 nautical miles. We have optical bars camera, 80 nautical mile visual reconnaissance, very long range frame camera, 2nd generation. So it's pretty current based on the time frame for this scenario. Surface search, ground search for mobile and fixed units as well. 5 nautical mile IRLS non-imaging infrared line scanner, and our regular Mark 1 eyeball. So this, of all the recon assets we have available to us, I think in terms of priority, the A6s with the forward-looking infrared cameras, as well as the F-15Es with the lantern attack pods with a 30 nautical mile range on them, they're our number 1 choice for recon. Second choice, a close second, are the U-2s at King Khalid Air Base, because they have, on paper, very capable sensors. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, the TR-1A has the same sensor loadout, same exact ability. I think the only difference really is perhaps engine capability. Let's see, 430 knots is the max speed of the TR-1A, and the U-2 is 430 knots. All right, maybe I'm wrong about that. But either way, sensor-wise, the 2 U-2 variants are exactly the same. And I think our third, if we're ranking our recon assets available to us, the U-2s are definitely our second string assets. Our third strings would be the Jaguars and the Recon Phantoms, which I'm very hesitant to use because I feel like they're going to be outclassed by whatever's opposing them. What is the longest scenario length in this DLC? I don't know. I was asked to play scenario number 14, which is called Liberation, featuring the Highway of Death, exodus from Kuwait back into Iraq. As for the other scenarios, I actually haven't played them. I've looked at some of the scenario descriptions, but I haven't actually played any of the other ones, so I am unaware of which one is the longest. This one is 36 hours in length. I would imagine, given the fact that some of the scenarios seem to cover quite large events, like the first night of the Desert Storm conflict, and aircraft flying from Diego Garcia, which is necessarily a long trip, I'd assume there's probably a few scenarios longer than this one, but again, that's just speculation. The first string recon, well, if you're talking about what I was just talking about, my 2 preferences are the F-15E Strike Eagle with the lantern attack pod, which gives us a 30 nautical mile range on optical sensors, as well as the A6s with a similar forward-looking infrared ability. Now these U-2s at King Khalid, they're going to take a while to get to this airspace, but we're going to launch them as well once we get the scenario started, because they do have the capability we need. They're just going to be our second choice for what we want them to do. Now we're almost through the order of battle. We've got 2 units left. Up at Incirlik in Turkey, we've got 6 aircraft, 3 F-15Cs armed with a heavy loadout of Sparrows, 4 Sparrows and 4 Sidewinders each. We have a Joint Stars aircraft, an E-3B Sentry for airborne early warning, and again, a Rivet Joint for ELINT as well. Yeah, no worries, Grant. We've been going through the order of battle for the last hour or so, taking a look at all the units we have available to us. In terms of reconnaissance, I was saying earlier that the most recent scenario I played on this channel here was the King of the Border updated scenario, which of course has F-35s, and you've got some very capable targeting pods like the sniper pod and the lightning pod, things that really spoil you in terms of intelligence gathering. We're dealing with 1991 based technology here, and a lot of those optical sensors are still very incapable or very limited in what they're able to do. So the actual recon aircraft that we have assigned to us, the Phantoms and the Jaguars from Bahrain, they are our recon assets, but I don't think we're going to be using them as such because I feel like they're going to get shot down quite easily. The U-2s at King Khalid and the targeting pod equipped A6s and F-15Es are going to be our main assets for that. Now looking at our final battle group on the seas, we've got the Kennedy Saratoga battle group over in the Eastern Mediterranean, just south of Cyprus. We of course have the carrier Saratoga and the John F. Kennedy. We have a plethora of escorts, including the regular guided missile cruisers, some Ticonderogas, the South Carolina, which is a nuclear-powered guided missile cruiser, and the Mississippi, which is unclassified as to what class she is, but indeed, again, a nuclear-powered guided missile cruiser. Now, what this means, effectively, is that we have a ton of anti-air surface-to-air missiles available to us through this fleet. You can see if we pull back the range isn't that great, but if we look at our range-finding tool, 50 nautical miles is the range of air defense around the Kennedy and Saratoga group. We have over 112 medium-range missiles with 25 nautical mile ranges. So if anybody tries to come at us, which I doubt Iraq is going to do because they have to fly through Syria and Lebanon and so forth, we have quite the capable defendability of this fleet as well. Now, for those of you joining us late, the scenario briefing did say that at this stage in the Desert Storm conflict, this is of course the final scenario in the Desert Storm expansion pack that relates directly to Desert Storm. A lot of the surface-to-surface missiles that were given to us have been expended. So while normally these combat groups would have a ton of Tomahawks, currently they only have 2 109C variants and 2 109D variants. So again, not a lot we can do with those, only having 4 of them. So in terms of standoff engagements, again, a lot of our aircraft on this on these carriers are carrying slightly standoffish weapons. We've actually got walleye-guided or walleye-armed Hornets with the 30 nautical mile range. That's actually good to see. A lot of our Hornets on the carrier groups on the Persian Gulf were actually set up with dumb bombs, which is an easy way to get them killed. Again, like I was saying earlier, I've said this a few times now, but I'll reiterate again for those of you just joining. If I was playing this through as a playthrough versus a preview stream, I would probably take some of these aircraft on the carriers and arm them with something a little more standoffish, a little more safe than what they're currently armed with. Again, we're seeing tankers, the K-6 Intruder. We've got some A-6 Intruders with dumb bombs, Tomcats with Phoenixes for light bar cap, more Tomcats with a light Sparrow loadout, Hornets with Snake Eyes, 500-pound bombs, I do believe. Yeah, not a lot different than what we were seeing on the other carriers, aside from the Hornets with carrying the walleye guided munition, which actually might come in handy, having that standoff ability. The only drawback is that standoff ability is very far to the west. If we look at our range-finding utility from the Kennedy Saratoga group to Kuwait, it's 800 nautical miles, roughly. Highway 8, as we can see here on the map, Highway 8 and the railroad line is this section here. So if we're looking at units, ground-based units to destroy, we're looking from roughly this area here to right here. The main locus of our forces will be in that area. We're expecting to find a lot of ground targets, a lot of units with which we need to dispatch. And the simple fact of the range is that even getting to Highway 8 is roughly 700 nautical miles. So I'm not sure exactly how we're going to make that work. I mean, even if we've set up a tanker track in, say, for example, Jordan or Syria, which I think we can do, there's really no restrictions on our ability to use those airspaces, as far as I'm aware. we're still going to have a very long run into a target that's further to the east over by Kuwait. So I'm not exactly sure how effective these units are going to be. They're definitely not my first choice for attacking Kuwait presently, because it's going to take them forever to get anywhere. But regardless, they're available to us if we can use them. Just looking at some of the Iraqi placements on the west side here, we've got cities: Rutba, Talayha, and Terbil, Fallujah, Ramadi. Going up north, Kirkuk, Erbil, and Mosul Airbase. There's airbases dotted all throughout the landscape. Some of them have come equipped with anti-air defenses, as we can see from this little pink circle around some of the airbases, roughly a 30 nautical mile range of air defense. I sure know my modern weaponry. Well, I tend to get it right every now and again. I won't say I'm a vast repository of knowledge, but I've been playing long enough this game to kind of know some of this stuff. I will say, for those of you who don't know who I am, first of all, welcome. It's nice to meet you. But second of all, I'm just a regular guy who likes to play games, and I don't have any specific military knowledge. I've never been in the military. I've just enjoyed playing games like this ever since I was a kid, whether it be Harpoon or Fleet Command or Command for quite a long time. So whatever quote-unquote knowledge that I've gathered over the years is simply through playing these games. And I think, again, one of the common comments I get on my YouTube videos about Command is that this game looks hard. It looks impenetrable. Like, how the heck do you do this? How do you make it look so easy? That kind of thing. And the fact of the matter is, I have no previous experience in the military. I don't have any background that would allow me to play this any easier than anyone else. Picking it up through, say, the Steam store or the MatrixGames store, it's just experience. And I think once you get over the hurdle of this looks intimidating and what the heck do I do, it really starts to make sense. Especially if you stick with it. It's not one of those games you can kind of pick up and just run with unless you kind of know what you're doing already. But once you get over that hump of learning and that comfort factor, I think I'm proof as to anybody, like, having no previous experience in the professional military field. You know, it's capable to play and enjoy a game like this and kind of pick it up as you go and not fail hard every time. You know, I mean, I have my moments where I fail pretty hard, but usually those moments are getting fewer and far between, I like to think. But that's my little pep talk to those of you out there who think this game is, you know, kind of out in left field. And how the heck do you get into this? How do you make it work? How do you get the interface to do what you want? It can be a little difficult at first, which is why, you know, if you have questions, let me know in chat. But again, there's hope. It's actually not that bad once you get into it, and once you start getting experience, and of course, you know, playing the game, you'll just pick things up, and eventually, you don't even think about it anymore. But anyways, we have gone through the entire order of battle, guys. We have seen units all across the theater, from Kuwait to the Persian Gulf to Saudi Arabia to the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond. We've got about an hour and a half left in the stream. I think we're going to move on to getting some gameplay done. Now, I don't want to do too much gameplay because this is, of course, a preview stream. And in the previous stream, I don't want to spoil too much for you, but we are going to do a little bit of gameplay. We're going to let the first hour or two tick off the clock and kind of whet your appetite for what this scenario offers you. I think before we get into that, though, I'm going to if I actually can do that here, let me... Oh, I closed it. I was going to rerun the trailer for the Desert Storm game. I guess I closed that. Should I rerun the trailer, guys, or should I just get back into running the scenario? What do you guys want to do? Do you want to see the trailer one more time for those of you showing up late, and we can kind of whet your appetite for the entire scenario pack, or do you want to keep on moving ahead with this playthrough and just get on to some gameplay? Want to rerun it? Okay. Well, let me see if I can pull that up here. Just give me 1 second, guys. All right. Let's bring that over here. All right, so for your viewing pleasure, it's a minute long. This is the trailer for Command Desert Storm being released next week. Once we get through this trailer, guys, we're going to move on to the first hour or two of the scenario we were just looking at, so hang tight. Alrighty, so that was the trailer for Command Desert Storm being released next week. Today we are playing a preview stream of this exact expansion being released next week. We're playing the 14th scenario called Liberation, focusing on the Highway of Death at the end of the Desert Storm conflict. Now, for those of you who are paying a little closer attention, you may have noticed that there are 15 scenarios in the actual expansion. We're playing the final scenario number 14, which is related to the actual Desert Storm conflict. And then I believe there's one mission after that that's kind of a hypothetical what if. I think it's dealing with, I can't remember what the scenario said it was, but there's one other hypothetical mission after that to round out the scenario at 15 missions total. So 14 Desert Storm directly related missions, then one hypothetical that's tagged on at the end there. Alrighty, so we have gone through the order of battle. Our first step here before we hit the clock is to figure out what we're going to do. As I've already alluded to, we have some very nice recon platforms that are not actually our recon defined aircraft, the Jaguars and the Phantoms. I'm going to keep those out of the battle as best I can for now. We're going to use our A6s, armed with the forward-looking infrared capabilities, as well as our Strike Eagles at King Abdulaziz Air Base as our main recon planes. Now let's take a quick look back at the briefing, because there's something that's very important here we need to recognize, and that is the Iraqi, where is it here? The Iraqi, here it is. Iraq established invasion sector headquarters in each overrun Kuwait city and oil field. The elimination of these centers will allow for returning these areas to Kuwaiti coalition forces. All right, so what do we see right now? We don't see on the map the Iraqi invasion sector headquarters. We see cities, we see oil fields, we see air bases, and we see Highway 8 heading out of Kuwait. So the first thing we need to do to start the process of liberating Kuwait is we need to recon the area and figure out where the heck these invasion headquarters are. Now I'm expecting from the air bases in Kuwait a little bit of resistance. I'm not sure how much to expect, but a little bit of resistance, as well as surface air missiles that are hidden in this area as well. So, two things we need to do. One is launch our intruders, and two, launch some aerial assets to defend them against any sort of contact with enemy fighters. Alrighty. So, starting with, may you share a link in chat? I don't know, Grant. What's the link for? Yeah, on my own personal channel, I don't like links being shared because there's a very high capability of someone phishing through links. So just curious what the link's about, and I guess we'll decide from there. All right, so looking at our Roosevelt Midway group, first thing we're going to do is what we always do, which is get a Hawkeye off the ground. We're just going to launch him individually and let him, we'll freeform send him into the Persian Gulf and let him orbit a single spot, giving us radar coverage of everything. A book on Amazon? Maybe you can just put the title of the book. So I know Amazon links can sometimes be, I think there's a URL shortener that can be utilized to do some funky things. Maybe just put the title in the chat. I know some people are mentioning some books they read before. You can just mention the title if you'd like. I think that's a safe way to do it. And if people want to go to Amazon on their own and find it, they can do it just that way. Alrighty, so we got our Hawkeye taking off. We also want to set up, what do we want to set up here? Well, we actually probably want to set up a few things. One, we want some aerial defense. Let's get that set up first. That's going to be the easy one. I'm going to, Control, hold down with Control, right click on the map and choose Define Area Rectangle. This will draw some reference points for us. And with those reference points drawn, we're going to add a new mission. I'm going to call it AAW Persian Gulf. We're going to turn that into a patrol, make it an AAW patrol, and hit OK. All right, so our mission set is roughly 30 nautical miles from the coast. If we're looking at the range of a Sparrow is roughly 30 nautical miles, unladen or otherwise. The range of the Phoenix will reach out to 100 nautical miles, so roughly out to here. I don't want to get our aircraft too close to the coast until we see what kind of ground-based SAMs we're dealing with, anything mobile that might not be showing on the map right now. So we're going to leave them further back. This is probably a good spot to leave them at. Let's set. We're going to try to keep. Let's just do 1/3 rule. We'll use 1/3 rule to keep a third of the units on station at all times. We're going to investigate contacts within weapons range only. We'll use sections of 2. We're going to turn off tanking. We don't want the eventual tanker tracks that we might set up in Saudi Arabia. We don't want our cap aircraft to be going all the way down south to steal that fuel. Investigating unknown contacts, we want 1 flight to go. Number of aircraft that engage hostile contacts, let's say 1 flight. All right, so that's all set. We're not going to assign aircraft from this screen. We're going to assign it from the carrier screen specifically. So let's take these 3 Hornets, assign them to AAW Persian Gulf. Of these 3 Hornets, none of them are ready for airborne duties, for aerial warfare duties. These guys are still getting ready as well. These Hornets are ground attack based. Yes, our Tomcats. We got 6 loaded out with Sparrows. We'll assign them to that group. And of these 3 Tomcats with Phoenixes, we'll assign all 3 as well. All right, we're effectively going to do the same thing with the Ranger task group. Going to find our Tomcats, assign them to the airborne warfare mission. These guys are not ready. These guys are ground attack. And these guys are perfect. I think that's it. That is it. All right, so we've got our aircraft assigned to this mission. The 1/3 rule should ensure that roughly 1/3 of the aircraft stay on station. 1/3 of the aircraft are in the process of rearming and refueling, and 1/3 of the aircraft are ready to replace the aircraft on station when they either go Winchester and head home or run out of fuel. Is that overkill? I don't know. I think we'll see. Actually, let's move this up here slightly more. So my main concern from an aerial standpoint is this corridor here. I don't need to split my aerial forces to have a patrol zone here or a patrol zone over here, because the main threat's going to come from here. I think one zone is good enough, and I think assigning all of my assets, at least initially, to a barrier in front of my carrier group is going to be a wise decision. If I need escorts for attack flights in the future, I can, of course, roll that back a little bit. But at least initially here, we are so close to the coast. There are so many air bases that are less than 100 nautical miles away from my group. I feel like being a bit more cautious by launching a third of my airborne capable assets, like my Tomcats and my Sparrow-laden Hornets, is the wise thing to do. All right. So that's where our aerial I keep calling them aerial resources. I mean, what does that even mean? Our aerial warfare patrol aircraft, the Tomcats and the Hornets, armed for aerial warfare. That's where they're going to patrol, and they should engage anything that comes within weapons range. We're going to send our Hawkeye roughly over towards, I don't know, we'll probably just leave them hovering over the battle groups here. And then we also want to have a zone for jamming and Eland. And we're going to set that up in a very safe place, hopefully. Again, right click on the map, choose, with control held down, choose define area. And let's put these guys behind our cap zone. Let's do this differently. Let's make it a straight line. This is going to be a support mission as opposed to a defined patrol mission. I'm going to call this airborne. Let's see, ECM. Let's call it ECM Persian Gulf. Turn it into a support mission. All right, I've got some of my reference points walking over one another. Let's fix that. You here, you here. There we go. The game should be happy now. I'm going to turn off 1/3 rule. We're going to keep one of each class on station at all times. I'm going to say no tanking. Single aircraft is fine. Alrighty, and again we're going to go to our carriers and manually assign to this mission. Let's do an EA6 Prowler. We're going to assign all 3 of these. I don't believe there's really anything else from the carrier that we want to put there. But we are, however, going to go down to, where is it here? Let's go down to Riyadh Airbase in Bahrain. We're going to use some of our UK assets. We're going to assign one of our Falcon 20s, one of our offensive ECM aircraft. I'm going to assign both to the mission. One of them will take off automatically. Assign a Joint Stars. And assign... I don't really need to assign a sentry to that, actually. Yeah, we've already got our Hawkeye in the area. That should be good enough for ECM. Alrighty, so that's all set there. And the difference between the patrol we set up earlier and the support mission we set up now is that effectively a support mission is a straight line. The units will just go back and forth across this line until they run out of fuel and have to go home. The patrol zone actually allows units to randomly define their course inside the patrol zone. So it's a little different in terms of what they're going to do and some of the capabilities that these aircraft are assigned to. Of course, with a patrol zone, you can say there's a prosecution area. You can engage targets at once they meet certain criteria. With a support mission, we just want aircraft kind of orbiting in one area and doing their thing there, which for tankers, for ECM, for airborne early warning aircraft is really all you want them doing. All right, so that is assigned. What else do we need? What else do we need? I'd also like to get another area defined here. I'm going to call this a support mission. Call this Airborne Early Warning Saudi. Make it a support mission. Again, we're going to say keep one unit of each class on station, take off the 1/3 rule. And we're going to turn off tanking. That's a decent track. I'm fine with that track by default. Let's go back to Riyadh Airbase, assign the UK coalition aircraft, 2 sentries here to that mission. So one will launch automatically once he runs out of fuel and heads back home. The second one will launch to replace him. Actually, let's send... Do we want... No, we'll leave our Falcons, our ECM Falcons going to the Persian Gulf. All right, so we've got 1 sentry south of Kuwait. We have a Hawkeye to the east of Kuwait. We've got a bunch of tankers down in the United Arab Emirates. Got a bunch of Falcons that we're not going to use. Some tankers. We've got an E3B. Maybe we'll send these E3Bs as well. Why not? I mean, we've got a ton of airborne early warning aircraft. We may as well use them. May as well use them. All right, we're going to do the same up north here. I do believe we have up in Turkey. We've got Eland, we've got a Sentry, we've got a Rivet Joint. So we're going to push our luck, put a support mission in Syria, which I'm assuming we've got overflight rights of because there's no zone defined that tells us we can't do it. So we're going to assume we're allowed to. I'm going to call this Airborne Early Warning Syria. I'm going to make it a support mission again. Turn off 1/3 rule, make sure there's only one unit on station at all times. And we're going to leave tankers allowed, but we need to make some tankers. We need to get some tankers up here. Do we have any that are close by? I actually think our closest tankers might be down south. Okay, so maybe we will turn off tanking. We don't want these aircraft flying all the way to the edge of Saudi Arabia to retank. All right. So that is set. We're going to assign from Incirlik the Joint Stars aircraft, the E3B Sentry. Nope, not Saudi. We want Syria. There we are. And our Rivet Joint as well. All right. We do have 3 F-15Cs ready to go for aerial combat if we need them to. Actually, we're going to move this slightly further back. Slightly further back. I don't know what kind of threats are at these air bases in Western Iraq, so we're going to play it as safe as we can. Alrighty. Let's also set up a airborne patrol zone for airborne warfare. We'll call this AAW Syria. Turn it into a patrol zone for AAW. We're going to say 1/3 rule is fine. We're not going to allow tanking. One flight will engage each set of contacts. All right, that should do. We're going to go to the Kennedy Saratoga group and assign our F-14s to that mission. These 3 here. And these 3 here. Did I miss any more? I did. We have 3 more. Off they go. Alrighty, so we're going to expand that just slightly here. All right, we should be good for defense of our carrier group and our support aircraft from Incirlik in Turkey. One final thing I need to set up here is a support mission where? Then probably need something right here. Remind me where my other airborne early warning aircraft are. Probably at Prince Sultan. Nope, not there. All right, they're way down south. Okay. So once again, we're going to find a zone here. We're going to say add new mission. AEW. Middle of nowhere. AEW. I've already used Saudi. Saudi. The sequel, Saudi 2. I'm sure I won't forget what that mission's all about. All right, it's a support mission. Turn off 1/3 rule. Turn off tanking. And that's all we need. At King Khalid, we're going to launch, well, we're going to assign these 2 E3Bs to that mission. And we don't want to forget about our U2s. So we're going to launch one of those manually. Take the TR-1A first. And we'll manually control him up towards Kuwait. Alrighty. Will we need air defense of that zone? We have, what do we have? Three Strike Eagles ready to go that have 4 Sidewinders each in ground attack loadouts. We've got Prince Sultan Air Base, which has Sparrow-laden Falcons. Maybe this is where we're going to put our tankers as well. Let's do that. Let's put a few tankers up there. We're going to take tankers from Al Ain International Airport. Assign to Saudi 2. Assign to Saudi 2. Alrighty. We got a nice big tanker track here for whatever needs it, if anything needs it. I'm thinking more along the lines of if I launch Falcons from Prince Sultan to defend my sentries that are right here, then I'll at least have something to refuel them with so the Falcons can actually make it there to defend them. Alrighty. So what have we got? We've got our support missions all set. We've got an ECM path here. And then I want to get my Recon done, which is going to be my Strike Eagles from King Abdulaziz Air Base. These 3 here have the advanced, or the Lantern Attack Pod, which gives us advanced optical abilities, 30 nautical mile range on their capabilities to detect ground targets. I'm going to launch these guys as a group. And then once they launch, we'll manually control them. We're also going to launch from the Roosevelt Midway group 3 A6 intruders armed with laser designated bombs and the forward-looking infrared system that again gives us 30 nautical mile range for vision. All right. So I think we're all set. I think we've got everything done that we need to get done, at least to initially start the scenario here. So again, our initial goal here, we've got 4 goals in our side briefing. Let's quickly refresh. We need to perform reconnaissance to determine the location of critical Iraqi transportation facilities. We need to eliminate all Iraqi sector control headquarters within Kuwait. Strike Iraqi military ground units heading north out of Kuwait and further into Iraq as the situation allows. And destroy Iraqi railway assets. So I feel that the first thing we need to do is identify the invasion sector headquarters and start the liberation of Kuwait. As we're doing that, we're also going to by default be reconning the area around Kuwait with our A6s and our F-15s. And as we do that, we're hopefully going to find some ground units, we're going to find some sector control headquarters, and we're going to find the railway assets, which I do believe actually are already defined on the map here. Yeah, we have Safwan Railway Road, we have Basra Railway Station, we have Nazira Railway Road. Yeah, so all these units, all these icons going up Highway 8 into Highway... Where's Highway 8 end? Roughly, Highway 8 ends roughly around here, I think it is. So all these railway stations roughly up to here are targets as well. But I think we're in a good place to start. We've got our Recon planes launching. We've got our aerial defenders being launched as well. Let's hit the clock and see what happens. Actually, before we do that, let me adjust the sound. Because I know for a fact, the instant a sound goes off, we're going to lose our ears. Okay. So again, as always, guys, let me know if the sound is too quiet or too loud. All right. Hopefully that's okay. Okay, the clock is going. We have roughly 36 hours in the scenario. Again, we're previewing today. We're not playing it through, so we're just going to play an hour or 2 of in-game. Just to whet your appetite and show you what the scenario is about. And then we're going to let you experience it for yourself next week when the Desert Storm campaign set is released on the 28th. Hi, pilot. This is not the first mission. This is actually the 14th mission in the Desert Storm mission set. Effectively, the final one. I think the 15th mission is a hypothetical scenario. We're recreating the Highway of Death from the end of the First Gulf War. We have 4 objectives. We're launching some airborne early warning aircraft for launching some Tomcats and Hornets to defend our fleet, as well as some A6s and F-15 E-Strike Eagles to reconnoiter Kuwait and give us a list of targets we need to hit to start satisfying our mission goals. Now, as we can see here, the ground units are moving in towards Kuwait. 5 knot speed, not going incredibly fast. So we have a lot of time, I think, as they trundle over their patches of desert. Again, I kind of want to stay ahead of them to make sure they don't run into any sort of ambush scenarios. We're going to hit. Well, we're going to wait and see what launches here. We've got a few units that are launching that need manual assistance. Let's get the Hawkeye over here. Make sure his sensors are on. Indeed, they are. Here's our A6s. Let's start sending them this way. We'll wait for our Tomcats and our Hornets to launch. Oh, why does no one want to recreate the Highway of Happy Fun Times? I don't know. That's a good question. All right, we've got our first set of contacts. New contacts discovered by... Huh. All right. What, AN APQ 156? That is not the forward-looking infrared that sensor that I thought would discover things. Let's see, yeah. Radar surface search. All right, so we picked it up on radar then. Do I have radar running? Radar is running. Why don't I see it? There it is. Surface search radar, not air search radar. All right. Well, that's good to know. So let's move these guys slightly towards the coast. As we can see here, we have an invasion sector HQ right beside Sabah Al Ahmad and Al Wafra, like an invasion sector HQ of Al Wafra. I feel like we can actually hit some of these with Tomahawks. We do have 23 Tomahawks available to us on the Missouri battle group. We're going to try that right now. We're going to fire on the invasion sector HQ from the Missouri. We've got all of our Tomahawks here. Fire 1 and see if 1 is enough. We're going to plot a course. That is our course into target. We're going to see what happens. All right, hit the clock. Sound is a bit loud. Let's mix that down a bit more. Again, if it's too quiet for you guys or too loud, let me know. Just going off what I can hear in my own ears. Now it's too quiet. Good job, Doc. You overcompensated. All right, so Tomahawk is out. It'll be there in roughly 5 minutes, I would guess. More launches from the carrier. We've got our F-14s launching to satisfy the requirements of the airborne patrol roughly here. All right, I need to go down to base way down here because my U-2's launched and he is manually handled. So let's go this way with him. Start the long trek from the bottom coast, from the southwest coast of Saudi Arabia all the way up to the northeast coast. Long way to go. Our Eagles have also launched. Let's move them forward. All right, sounds like the sound is all messed up still. Make it a bit louder. All right, here are my A6s. We've got more invasion sector HQs defined. Plenty of targets coming up. I'm not going to get too close. I want to make sure my Tomcats and my Hornets are in place to defend me if something launches against my my intruders. Again, more fixed targets are being identified. We got 2 Hornets in the air, 2 Tomcats. plenty of airborne assets in place to defend us. We've got enemy bogies launching just north, coming from Shaiba Airbase, just across the border into Iraq. A northerly heading, it looks like, so nothing we need to worry about just yet. EA6s have launched. Let's make sure they're actually jamming. Actually, let's pause for a second here. I do want to make a change to my ECM in Persian Gulf. Let's change our mission doctrine for MCON settings. Let's go active radar. Let's go active OECM. That way they're going to jam automatically. They're going to turn on the radar automatically. And that's that. So that's the doctrine assigned to this mission. So it'll only affect aircraft assigned to this mission, like the Prowlers, the Falcon 20s, etc. Close that off. And one thing I do want to bring up, there was a patch release that brings us up to version 1.15. And in that patch, there were some nice changes made to the game. One of which is here in the side doctrine, which will affect all of our units in this scenario. It's BVR engagement logic. We have three options. One is follow the missile straight in. Second is crank if possible. And third is crank and drag if possible. So what this effectively allows us to do, and this is very important in terms of, say, for example, our Phoenix-laden Tomcats. We can either say, when you fire your beyond visual range missiles, follow the missile straight, don't do anything, just keep on going straight at the enemy target. We can crank ourselves, which means putting the enemy target on the left or right side of our radar cone, and then slowing down to a slower speed so that we limit the rate of closure between us and that beyond visual range target. It allows us to get multiple beyond visual range shots off if we need to. And thirdly, we can crank, which is doing what I just said, to putting the target at the left or rightmost limit of the radar cone, and then dragging, which means once your beyond visual range missile has gone active, you then drag, which means turn around and keep a distance between yourself and the enemy target. So effectively, what I'm thinking is happening here is that when we follow the missile straight in, you're reducing the limit between your fighter and the enemy fighter as fast as possible. So pretty quickly, you're going to get into a guns or an IR missile fight pretty quickly. If we're cranking, we're going to limit the engagement closure rate a little bit. So we're going to have more chance to do more beyond visual range damage. And thirdly, if we're going to crank and drag, we're going to make it even more difficult to get into a within visual range fight requiring IR-based missiles or guns. Being the technologically advanced coalition, the NATO/American/ Western forces in this scenario, I think our best option is to crank and drag, because we have a lot of beyond visual range weaponry that can utilize the ability to crank and drag, especially our Phoenixes, because they are active radar homing at a certain point. I think this will allow us to stay outside of gun range, which, if we get into gun range, then we have a very likely chance, maybe 50-50, maybe 40-60, of losing an aircraft. I think if we keep the enemy planes at bay, crank and drag if possible, then we will keep them at a arm's length longer and improve our ability to not only stay alive, but to do damage without being threatened. So that is a new change that they added to this version 1.15. Something I'm very interested in seeing, because in my opinion, aerial warfare is dependent a lot upon micromanagement to keep your planes alive. And seeing something like that built in is really goes a long way, in my opinion, to improving the AI's ability to react or to combat and react efficiently. Yeah, Pixel, I think it was added in this most recent patch. So there's so it is relatively new. I think the most recent patch was out a week or two ago. Very recent. But it's a very nice change. At least I haven't really had a chance to use it. A lot of the missiles in this scenario are Sparrows, which means that you can't really crank and drag, because if you break your radar lock, your missile goes into the ocean. But I'm very interested to see how it will function in a more modern scenario with AMRAAMs and the like. All right, so our Tomahawk is still on its way, roughly halfway to the target. Our intruders are ingressing into the Kuwaiti airspace in about 20 nautical miles. Our jammers are jamming. Our cap is capping. And our ships are shipping. Everything's going to plan. Tankers have taken off. They're going to take a path right across the Iraqi border. It's probably not safe, but I'm sure we'll survive. It'll be fine. It's going to take, how long is it going to take our U2 to get up to here? How long is it going to take? 3 hours and 8 minutes. All right, so we're probably not going to see our U2 have any appreciable effect on our intelligence gathering ability in this preview of this scenario, because it's going to take her almost over 3 hours to get there. All right, now we have some enemy contacts that are heading south. Our ships are responding in kind. Missiles out on what appear to be MiG-29s and MiG-21s. Let's just take a quick look here. Is anybody... I don't think anybody in our airborne patrol zone or in our aerial anti-air warfare patrol zone is actually engaging offensive. I think these missiles are our first. Yeah, nothing has entered into range yet, so we're not going to... Our Hornets and our Tomcats are not going to worry about these MiG-29s until they get a bit closer. These MiG-29s, however, have a decent missile range to them. Let's just take a quick look at how they're armed. Archer AA-11, 10 nautical mile range. That's the heat-seeking close-in weapon system. Or missile system. The Alamo, which is semi-active radar homing, 45 nautical miles. Alright, so semi-active radar homing, 45 nautical miles. Decent range. I think that outranges our Sparrows, if I'm not mistaken. Which have a, 55 nautical mile range, so we're still good there. As long as we can keep them under threat and keep them breaking their radar lock, then we have nothing to worry about. Lots of missiles coming out from our Midway and Roosevelt carrier group. 4 enemy air contacts launching. Unknown contacts. Mirage F1EQ. Again, decent airborne warfare range out. Let's take a quick look at the database entry. R550 Magics. 5 nautical mile range. Heat seeking, of course. Super R530Fs. 22 nautical mile range. Semi-active radar homing, I do believe. Yes, they are. So guided by the aircraft yet again. Smaller range than our MiG-29 opponents, which is, again, good. We still outrange them quite handily. As long as we can keep them at arm's length and keep breaking their radar locks, we have nothing to worry about in terms of losing aircraft, I hope. Our A6s, though, however, are potentially under threat. Again, all these ship missiles are being launched. Our Hornets and Tomcats have had to do nothing just yet, although they are on station waiting. They are ready and waiting. Tomahawk's about 30 nautical miles away from its target. All of these contacts are hostile. We're going to mark them as such so that our ships can engage them as well. In my opinion, if our ships went on launch on these contacts all day long and save our Tomcats and our Hornets for targets that seep through, that's perfectly fine by me. A lot more missiles stored in these ships than there are in our airborne assets. First kill of the day. A Mirage F1EQ is down, just east of the border. Lots of missiles are missing, though. Taking a look here for surface attack. Everybody's armed with anti-air warfare weaponry. That's what their circles say. Turning on the surface attack, they've got something short-ranged. What would that be? Maybe dumb bombs of some sort? Maybe rockets? Okay, nothing we really need to worry about. these MiG-21s aren't going to get in range of our ships anytime soon. Now, it looks like the MiG-29s are loaded out with an anti-air warfare profile. So I don't think our ships are in danger. This is more a response to the other aircraft we have in the air. Hey, Grey Knight. Welcome to the stream. All right, let's clean this up a little bit. It's getting a little chunky, a little junky, I should say. Fire control radars on only. We don't care about surface weapons at the moment. And let's do range symbols for only selected unit. There we go. That's a bit better. Again, our Tomcats and our Hornets patrolling the area. They haven't had to do much of anything just yet. Our intruders are still in place. Our Kim is hostile as well. We're not shooting down a lot, but we are certainly keeping them at bay. MiG-21s have reached the Persian Gulf. They've got their feet wet. I think they're soon to get their plane wet as well. Mirage 21s are getting close to our intruders. Let's back them off a bit. Alright, our Tomahawk hit its target. It has not been destroyed. Alright, so what we need to do from the Missouri Battle Group is launch one more Tomahawk. And we're going to plot the course, make it straight on attack, and off we go. Panzer Walrus. I do believe that is what the briefing said, that the Iraqi radar coverage is kind of spotty, about 50% capable. Now let's see here. It is reported that due to damage and maintenance failures, Iraq's radar capabilities are intermittent with about 50% operational rate at any given time. So I would say that's correct. All of their planes are launching with their radars active simply because they've got nothing behind them that allows them to have a sense of what's going on in the air in front of them. Can I do a bomb damage assessment with a second Tomahawk? Let's see, what kind of sensors are on this Block 2 Tomahawk? What kind of sensors? I don't see any sensors. I don't believe this Tomahawk has that ability. At least from what I'm seeing here. I know some of the newer Tomahawks have decent detector heads in them that allow them to do some sort of recon before they hit their target. Yeah, like this more modern variant from 2007 has an IR seeker, which gives you some intelligence on the way into target. What I can do, however, is turn my intruders around and send them in a bit closer. 30 nautical mile range on their forward-looking infrared is roughly where this waypoint is, so we should start getting some decent bomb damage assessment data once they get closer. Shot down a Mirage and a MiG-21. Again, oh, we finally have some Sparrows out. Most of these missiles you see, though, however, are still from our naval forces. Hey, Penfold. You've always been interested, eh? Well, welcome to the stream. If I can answer any questions for you, just let me know. Ooh, what's this? We've got a mobile unit detected by our F-15E Strike Eagles. Wow. Detected by their radar. Wow, good for them. Right at max range, too. We do have a bomb damage assessment now of the Invasion Sector HQ in El Wafra. Looks to be roughly half damage. BDA is medium damage. No fires. Health bar is roughly half. So I think one more hit from a Tomahawk should take it out. Gun train reports. Yeah, we probably reached that assessment based on Yeah, we're just within 30 nautical miles range, so our forward-looking infrared finally came in handy there. Let's get a bit closer to this unknown mobile contact and see what we can see. See if we can get a positive ID on it. Penfold, this game is it's the ultimate modern combat sandbox in terms of naval and aerial warfare. There are two databases in this game that together cover from, I believe, the 1940s, like kind of the late 40s, all the way up to 2020 and beyond. And then scenarios in this game, they're wonderful community resources for a scenario building available to you on the Steam store or through separate download. The community scenario pack, I believe, is got hundreds of user-created scenarios that span the entire time frame that the databases allow you to use. And there's just a ton of content out there for really any timeline that you're looking to play in. Okay, we might have an issue here with our A6s. Getting a little too close. These Mirages are almost in range. Although we do have plenty of missiles out. That is, they might be enough to deal with the enemy targets. But what we're seeing here is the enemy aircraft will dive to the deck and get down really low, and then our ships will lose radar contact, causing the missiles to go dumb and self-destruct. So these carrier-based firings are not hitting as much as I'd like them to. I think we need to move our airborne warfare patrol inbound, closer to the coast, because we're a little far away right now. Let's move our intruders back, get them out of the Mirage. So you can see there, our RIM 67 SMs, or SM2s really, that's what they are, have gone blind. And why have they gone blind? Because the target they were going for went down too low and the radar lost contact with them. So that is one of the more challenging aspects that our ships are facing in this scenario. The missiles and radars just can't work together if the enemy target gets too low. Oh yeah, Penfold. There's a ton of Cold War stuff from the 50s to 80s. One of the first playthroughs I ever did, actually the first playthrough that I did for Command a few years ago on my YouTube channel, was using Northern Inferno, which was an expansion pack, a standalone expansion pack, which was 15 scenarios, if I'm not mistaken, based in 1975. Cold War scenario based in that time frame. Ton of fun. If you're into that kind of scenario, there's a lot of user-created content. There's also official content created, like the Command Live scenarios and the expansions like Northern Inferno, which cover a whole plethora of ranges as well. Alright, so we've got pretty much half the American missile inventory in the sky right now. We finally shot down that Mirage. Another MiG-21 is down. It's a turkey shoot right now. Yeah, again, this Mirage lives to fight another day because everything went blind. Yeah, looking at our stores of missiles, we're getting a little low on the longer range ones. We see a missile 41.4 nautical miles away. Let's jump to that. Oh, he's finally got into range, has he? This Mirage is firing on, most likely, one of our Tomcats. And these Tomcats have fired off their Sparrows, so they've got a Sidewinders left. Not ideal. There's also incoming SAMs from the Midway / Roosevelt carrier group, which are targeting this guy. Our first danger moment of the scenario. Will these Tomcats survive? More importantly, will these missiles get to the Mirage in time to force him to break his radar lock? Another set of missiles coming in from this Mirage here. Alright, this missile lock's been broken. This missile's gone dumb, and it self-destructs. This missile, however, looks like it is still locked on. No, it's gone dumb as well. Oh, no, it's tracking one of the Tomcats that is separated from the main formation. These Tomcats are in a bit of a pickle. Where the heck are the rest of my are the rest of my aircraft here? You are engaged defensive, you're cranking, engaged defensive, cranking. Alrighty, let's get you guys back into the fight. They were still going at a heading that was where the airborne warfare patrol zone was prior to me moving it. So hopefully now that I've erased those erased those movement orders, they will move towards the new zone, which is closer to the enemy coast. Still engaged defensive. Uh-oh. Okay, so we've got, within 2 nautical miles, another launch on our Tomcats. Let's get you guys to attack him. Uh-oh. And we lost a Tomcat. Rats. There is 1 Tomcat left in that group. Let's reassign him to attack that Mirage. Finally, our shipborne missiles hit something. Sidewinder's out on this Mirage. And he's down. Alright, we have 1 Sidewinder left, 1 MiG-21 left. I want you to attack. Let's take you off that and attack. 1 Tomcat left. Why are you not engaged offensive? Unassign, F1, attack. There we go. That's better. Sidewinder out. Okay, we got a hit, but it wasn't a kill, so the Mirage has been damaged, but she's still in the air. We're engaging with guns now. There he goes. Finally down. Okay, so this Tomcat is out of weaponry effectively. Send him home. More aircraft on the inbound. How are we doing in terms of SAMs? We still have 4 long-range SAMs, which give us the range of 100 nautical miles. That's how we're hitting all these planes so far out. We also have the medium-range SM-2s with a range of 50 nautical miles. So we're about to lose our long-range ability to reach out and touch somebody. That being said, we should still have, yeah, we've got plenty of Hornets in the sky. Actually, let's take a look at our side doctrine. There's something weird going on here. So weapon state is a Winchester. Mission-specific weapons have been expanded, allow targets of opportunity with air-to-air guns. Well, what we're seeing right now is that a lot of our patrolling aircraft, our F-18s, for example, they've got 3 Sidewinders left, no Sparrows. Our Tomcats have 4 Sidewinders left, no Sparrows. Or Phoenixes. Our other Tomcats, 4 Sidewinders, no Sparrows or Phoenixes. So, we're at a significant disadvantage fighting aircraft with semi-activated or homing missile in that scenario. So what I'm going to do is go to our doctrine and say Winchester is no longer the weapon state that we want. We want all BVR or standoff weapons have been expanded, allow easy targets of opportunity with within visual range or strike weapons. and disallow air-to-air guns. Let's do that. Let's set that instead. And that sends all of our current aircraft that have no Sparrows or Phoenixes left back home. Which is good, because they're getting outranged by the Mirages and the MiG-21s and the MiG-29s. Get those guys back to safety. A new wave will launch from the Ranger and from the Roosevelt and the Midway to replace those resources. Let's bring up our mission so I can grab the right reference points. Let's bring this back a little bit. Our SAM range on our ships is going to be reduced because of our loss of the ER variant to the SM-2. So we're going to bring our airborne patrol back in closer to give it a bit more cover. Again, a lot of our planes are loaded out with light loadouts. They don't have a lot of long-range missiles attached to them. Again, if I was playing this through as a playthrough as opposed to a preview, I would probably change some of those loadouts before the scenario started to get more heavier long-range loadouts, more Sparrows, more Phoenixes, etc. So we're going to stay closer to our ships, which gives us more protection. For some reason, our A6s are Winchester. All right, that's fine. Our Strike Eagles are in place, however. Let's get them in close. More Mirages, more MiG-29s. More. They're everywhere. My goodness. It's like ants. You can't get rid of them. Just keep on coming. Our Tomahawk's about to hit the Al Wafra Sector HQ. Second hit, it's still alive. It's alright though. We've got Strike Eagles that are close. We just shot down a MiG-29 with one of our Seaborne SAMs. Again, the Iraqi forces are making a hard push at our Tomcats and our Tomcats and our Hornets that are heading back to their carriers. We have a ton of Sparrows, a ton of SM-2s in the air. They don't really stand a chance, and none of them are armed with air-to-surface missiles. There we go, another MiG-21 taken out, another Mirage taken out. Yeah, that was another Mirage as well. I mean, I suppose if I'm not careful here, we could actually get into a scenario where we're very easily overwhelmed. We're seeing a lot of mobile contacts. Most likely, these are the army contacts that we want to eventually destroy on Highway 8 heading out of Kuwait into Iraq. Picking them up based on our F-15E Strike Eagle radar, which is pretty awesome. Considering, I thought the main resource on the F-15E Strike Eagle would be its targeting pod. But apparently, it's quite capable when it comes to its radar abilities as well. Now, the problem with our Strike Eagles being so close, though, is they're only armed with Sidewinders. They're mainly a ground attack, in a ground attack setup right now, with laser-guided bombs. So this MiG-29, if he wanted to, he could have us at his mercy. He's very close, and we're not going to get into range to hurt him without putting ourselves at great danger. Same with this Mirage. He's got a greater range than we do with only Sidewinders. What we really need is more Phoenixes. But again, we're kind of short-staffed in terms of long-range missiles. I mean, look at our Tomcats here. They're already out of their radar-guided missiles. They're down to Sidewinders already. And these Mirages are getting awfully close to our carrier. Very close to our carrier. I could reduce the auto-fire range. Yeah, that's one option to maintain these missiles for a longer period of time. A little late now, though, because we've run out of the ER variant of the SM-2. We're down to 96 SM-2s, which I'm okay with. I mean, we should be firing when they're within 25 nautical miles. Alright, so you're engaged offensive on what? Are you engaged offensive on him? There you go. Oh, someone fired a blind shot. There we go. Sidewinder out. And Mirage down. Awesome. Alright, so our Strike Eagles are being chased. Whose fault is that? Well, I didn't really defend them very well, did I? Do we have any Sparrow-laden aircraft available to us quickly? We've got some F-15Cs in light loadout, 2 Sparrows, 2 Sidewinders. Let's launch them all and tell them to get up there and help out. So we're not going to be able to do much until we sanitize the area of these MiG-29s and these Mirage F-1s. Yep, SG Bayou. This does come out March 28th. So next Thursday. Next Thursday. Thank you for the 2 months in a row, Zilkaram. Much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're enjoying. So, I'm getting a lot of bogey contacts that are 16.7 nautical miles away by my Ticonderoga class cruiser. Don't know if that's accurate. Let's see. What is? Are you 16? No, you're not 16. So apparently somebody here thinks there's a contact here, and that's what I'm seeing. All those entries in the log about. Shotgun weapon state has been set to 1 engagement with standoff weapons. However, aircraft Jake 1 only armed with short-range weapons. Return to base immediately. Change the shotgun weapon state for short-range weapons to guns. Okay, so I broke something. That's why my A6s ran back to base. So, Winchester. All mission-specific weapons have been expended. Alright, I guess I have to leave this on. That was my bad. My bad indeed. Though I think our F-15Cs will be launching shortly. Taxiing to take off. Another 90 seconds. There we go. We shot down another Mirage F-1. We're getting a heck of a lot of ground contacts heading up Highway 8. More MiG-29s in the sky, MiG-21s heading towards our fleet. More F-14s being launched to defend our little patrol zone in front of our carriers. Although I would say they're probably not the most effective. What's really giving us the advantage here is our 4 fleets kind of grouped closely together. Let's take a quick look at the score. We've got a major defeat going on here. We've lost 1 Tomcat. We have shot down 11 Mirages, 3 MiG-21s, 17 Mirages in total of 2 subvariants, 5 MiG-21s and 2 MiG-29s. So roughly between 25 and 30 aircraft, which is pretty good. Pretty good. I'm okay with that. He kind of chafes to lose a Tomcat, but not much we could do there. That was a bit of a bad situation with that Tomcat. Meanwhile, we are running away from Mirage F-1 with our 3 Strike Eagles. Alright, let's unassign the set of Tomcats and bring them over here to attack this Mirage. Help our F-15s out. He's within Sparrow range. 2 weapons out. Oh, actually, no. Those were 2 weapons out from our carrier group. So reassigning this F-14 to the airborne warfare mission, because he is no longer needed. All right, I think we're going to turn back around on these guys. We're going to kick it up into Afterburner. We're going to go at them. Get into Sidewinder range. Well, well, the best laid plans of mice and men, right? It was a good idea. It was a good idea. Either way, I think we have a clear run now at the Invasion Sector HQ at Al Wafra. A clear run with our Strike Eagles, at least. The F-15Cs that we launched to defend the honor of our F-15Es have finally made it into the air. Off they go towards the southern border of Kuwait. Again, a trickle of enemy aircraft, MiG-21s mainly, heading towards our fleet. I think I set up this mission wrong. We've got investigate contacts within weapons range, which is well, maybe not. It's hard to tell. So if whenever a ship fires on a plane, for example, the planes that are in the airborne patrol zone ignore that enemy contact until he's within almost an emergency distance, like 5 or 10 nautical miles from that plane. So I'm trying to determine whether or not, if my ships weren't here, if my airborne warfare patrol zone would actually engage this MiG-21, for example, which is well within the airborne range of my Sparrow missiles. I'm thinking it would. But the problem here is that the ships attack the plane. My planes see that happen. They don't double up or anything like that. They just pretend like everything's fine. So let's watch and see what happens with this. We might have to manually intervene if this SMR Block 2 misses. I don't want to lose any more Tomcats. All right, so this MiG-21's gone defensive. He's diving to the ground. And there we go, never mind. All much ado about nothing. Meanwhile, our Strike Eagles are almost in range. Okay, our plan is to attack the Invasion Sector HQ at Al Wafra, and I want to get a positive ID on what this is. I'm guessing either ground units that are in ambush waiting for the Saudi and Marine Army units to get, or ground units to get in place, or a SAM of some sort. Either or. So let's set up the manual attack. Shift F1. We're going to launch one paveway laser guided bomb. That'll happen when we get into range, which is this little brown circle here, indicating land attack range. Hey, Raven UK, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you again next time. We've got about half an hour left in the stream, guys, so we've got maybe another hour of in-game time. If there's anything you want to see, if there's anything you think I should be doing, obviously I'm not going to edit in 1 billion nuclear weapons, but I'm open to suggestions. Alright, so one laser-guided weapon is out. Moving our Strike Eagles to the right. That won't break. Yeah, it looks like they're orbiting the target, keeping the laser tracker on target. Which is good until we get into range of whatever this is. If it's a SAM, we could be in trouble. Alright, killed another MiG-21. Dropping like flies. Wow. So that weapon malfunctioned. So we're going to bring our boys back this way, away from this unknown contact. Oh, we can see our E-3B sentry in the air. Radar's operational. Actually, let's attack now. We'll choose one more laser-guided bomb. There we go, weapon out. Evening, Hellcat 1. Welcome to the stream. Alright, if this does not malfunction, we should have this invasion sector taken out. Survey says. There we are. Alright, so what happened there? We finished off the El Wafra invasion sector HQ. And when we did that, El Wafra itself, the city, just to the south of that sector HQ, has now turned blue. So effectively what we've done by doing that, by destroying that building, is liberated El Wafra. So that is effectively the first part of our mission here. We've got multiple invasion sector HQs surrounding the cities in Kuwait. We have to destroy all of those and flip the surrounding cities and units and oil fields back to blue. All right, question is, what is this right here? So we're going to play a little game. We've got 2 Eagles left with 4 paveway laser guided bombs. Not the greatest thing for SAM hunting. Of course, SAMs with any decent range will be able to break our laser lock and make our bomb go dumb. So we're at 36,000 feet now. Let's go down to 12,000 feet. I'm wondering if my targeting pod needs to be within a certain altitude. Let's take a quick look at that if I can. Where is my lantern pod? Here it is. Lantern pod, forward-looking infrared. Nothing about ranges, although the name itself, 12k feet. It's 12k feet, so I'm thinking I might have to be 12,000 feet or lower for it to actually see what's on the ground. Hey Hellcat 1, we are playing the 14th scenario in the upcoming Command Desert Storm campaign pack, which is releasing on March 28th. This is effectively mirroring the Highway of Death at the end of the Gulf Storm the Desert Storm conflict in the first Gulf War. So we've got about half an hour left in the stream, and we're just in the process of shooting down everything the Iraqis throw at us, which is a lot of MiG-21s, a lot of Mirages, and a lot of MiG-29s, as well as liberating Kuwait by destroying these sector invasion HQs like you just saw here at El Wafra. Now, in the meantime, we're sending these remaining 2 Strike Eagles down low. Actually, let's send them a bit lower. Let's give ourselves some room here. I don't want to walk into a SAM unwittingly. We're going to go down to 10,000 feet. There we are. So we're at 10,000 feet. The range on our attack pods is roughly 30 nautical miles, so we should be able to discover what this is without getting too close. There are no clouds in the sky. There's no rain. It's clear skies all the way up from ground to top. Why we can't pick this guy up? We know what his health is. No bomb damage. Well, there we are. So red, that is bad. Radar illuminator short range. That means we've run into a SAM. We don't know what he is, though. We haven't got a positive ID yet. Let's get our Strike Eagles out of there ASAP. Afterburn, minimum altitude, go. All right. So we have a launch from an Aspeed. Should know what that is. It is a short-range SAM, range of 10 nautical miles. And it is it IR-based? No, it looks like it's semi-active radar homing. All right, so. Okay, we've gone defensive. We're going defensive right at SAM. That's not what we want to do. We've lost 1 F-15E Strike Eagle. Not ideal. But at least we know what it is now. We know what it is. Now, we can't attack it with these Strike Eagles because our laser-guided bombs are going to be... it's a death sentence if we do. We, of course, have to effectively orbit the target, keep the laser designator on the target, which means we have to stay nice and level for our bomb to actually hit the target. These Strike Eagles, not exactly built for this, or at least loaded out for this. We do have better options, though. We are playing... Well, sorry, Hellcat 1. The scenario we're playing is called Liberation. It's the 14th scenario in the Desert Storm campaign pack. We do have some Thunderbolts. We're going to launch a few Thunderbolts. 3 in total. They are going to be our SAM hunters. Again, we don't have anyone loaded out with... we've got nobody loaded out with anti-radiation missiles. It'd be kind of handy if we did. Let's put it back to cruise. We're going to go back to 12,000 feet. Cruise and 12,000 feet. There we are. Do a quick sweep of the radar. Okay, so we have a rough idea that this is... Well, we know this SAM. The radar on the Strike Eagle seems to be quite good at picking out unknown ground targets. We can assume this is probably a SAM as well, and I'm guessing this is too. Maybe. The units we see on the road here, most likely tanks, most likely IFVs, most likely infantry units. And we're probably going to run into some SAMs here as well. Tomahawk it out. Not a bad idea. I always appreciate a good tomahawk strike. Fire 1. All right, we'll wait for that to happen. We'll move our A-10s in once they launch. Again, it's going to take them a while to get there. They may not get there by the time the scenario reaches its conclusion, or the stream reaches its conclusion, I should say. Again, we're doing a preview of the Desert Storm expansion for next week. We're not doing a playthrough. So we spent quite a long amount of time going through the order of battle and plans for what we wanted to do. It's worth noting, though, the forces I've got on the west side of Iraq, over Syria, effectively. My rivet joints and my sentries, as well as my Tomcats, have not encountered any resistance yet. So if there's anything at these air bases, we haven't triggered them. All the action so far is down in Kuwait. We've managed to liberate Al Wafra, and we have the plans to liberate everything else in this area. We just have to coordinate the strike against it and somehow figure out this the best way to take out these SAMs without anti-radiation missiles. And that, I think that's the answer right there. I think we need to actually take the time to rearm some of our aircraft. Like dumb bombs are not going to be the answer. These Hornets have a range, or these 500-pound bombs have a range of 1 nautical mile. So you got to get within 1 nautical mile to drop it. There's no guarantee it's going to hit, and you're going to take a lot of SAMs in the face in return. All right, what do we have here that can do the job? LGBs, those are not going to do the job. Again, laser-guided bombs are not what we're looking for. Looking for something with a bit more intelligence, maybe some standoff capability. Snake Eyes, not going to do the job either. Yeah, we're really not kitted out very well on the carriers in the Persian Gulf for this kind of attack. Not at all. Let's see if the Ranger has anything to it. Anything we can use? Tanker, jamming, maritime surveillance, and dumb bombs, seals. Maybe the seals can take it out for us. No, submarine stuff. That's all submarine stuff. All right. So, yeah, I go back to my comment earlier that if I was doing a playthrough as opposed to a preview, I think I would take the time at the start of the scenario before really doing anything and rearm a lot of these planes on the carrier groups to make them more effective. The Thunderbolts, however, have launched. Move them north. It'll take them a while to get to the combat zone, but they'll get there, and they're going to be effective, I think. They have an 8 nautical mile range on their Mavericks, and they are standoff, if I'm not mistaken, so they can fire and forget, which means they don't have to keep ingressing towards the enemy area to risk more SAMs. That being said, let's take our Strike Eagles this way, and we'll approach from the Persian Gulf on some more invasion sector HQs. We do have 2 paveways left on this single Strike Eagle. You think it would work if jamming's active, eh? Well, let's test that out. We've got a prowler unassigned from the mission. Let's get him over here. Jamming's always one of those things that's difficult to judge how effective you're going to be, because there's really no feedback on how well it's doing, because you can't see what the other side is going through, which I guess is accurate to the real world. But we'll try that out. It's good. It's a good thought there. We're going to put the prowler 20 nautical miles off the coast, out of range of the SAM, of course, and then we'll bring in the Strike Eagle and see what happens. I'm willing to try anything at least once. I'm surprised no one's gotten mad at me for having the first Eagle lost in combat ever. Probably the first Tomcat, too. At least American Tomcat. Usually when I lose an Eagle on a YouTube playthrough or a live stream, the first thing I hear is, the Eagle had a perfect combat record. What are you doing? Well, oopsie. I've lost a lot of Eagles over my time. My virtual combat record with the Eagle is not stellar. All right, our F-15Cs are getting close. If there's any more launches from these air bases slightly to the interior of Kuwait, these F-15Cs should be able to take care of them. 10 Sparrows should be more than enough to protect whatever we've got in the area. You're fired. You're fired. Yeah, that's one thing I never have to worry about, is being court-martialed for losing Eagles. Maybe court-martialed in the court of public opinion, but never actually court-martialed. Where's our jammer? Here's our jammer. Jamming's off. Let's turn that back on. There we are. Now, actually, this may be a moot point. We've got a Tomahawk, a single Tomahawk going in on the SAM site too. If that takes out the SAM site, we might have to try this again. That's going to open up a few more invasion sector HQs for us, though, which is nice. A stern gaze. Yeah. I would never be this crazy with real life assets. Much more safe in real life. Let's see, what do we do? One Tomahawk. Oh, geez, Louise. Tomahawks are amazing. All right, so what's the situation? We have a jammer that's roughly 30 nautical miles off the coast. We have what we're assuming is a SAM site here. So we're going to test that theory right now. Yes, let's test it right now. Let's move the jammer in slightly closer. We're going to move our Strike Eagle in here. Off we go. If we lose another Eagle, I do apologize. It certainly is not my intent to destroy the reputation of the American Eagle Air Force, the American Eagle Fighting Force. In the scenario Havana daydreaming, if you lose an F-15, there's a message basically telling you N+1 is giving you this. That's funny. That's funny. Tears of joy in the Tomahawks. Yes, I love my Tomahawks. If anyone saw seen me play through scenarios like Dawn of a New Era, where you've got 154 Tomahawks on your Ohio class SSGN, I think it is, guided missile submarine. Launching all 154 of those is a sight to behold. It's quite fun. Quite fun. I recommend it. Now, in terms of aerial opposition, there's really nothing in the air at the moment. There are some Iraqi forces over the Iranian border, which is kind of odd. No response from the Iranians as far as we can tell. Nothing out west either. We do have our ELINT aircraft and our airborne early warning aircraft within 80 nautical miles of the coast, or of the border, sorry, with Iraq. Tomcats don't have much to do just yet either. Playing it kind of slow and quiet. All right. So our jammer's in place. Yeah, there was a scenario I played a long time ago. I think it was Under African Skies. Amazing scenario, if it still works. Amazing scenario. And at the end of it, I think it goes through the amount of costs that you incurred to win the scenario. It's like, hey, happy victory. By the way, you just, destroyed the American budget. All right, so let's manually attack. Fire 1, laser guided bomb. Let's get our jammer going back towards the target. I don't know if that means anything, but we'll do it anyways. All right, laser guided bomb out. Sam away. Front row. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Oh, he's still alive. We spoke too soon. Come on. It's a timing thing. Is he gonna beat it? Oh no. Oh no. And what happened? We hit 878 feet away from the SAM site. Okay, the paveway cannot have its target illuminated. It will impact with severe accuracy reduction. Yeah, we completely missed. And I think based on that test, the jamming at least of one prowler was not sufficient to really impact the SAM site at all. Yeah, it happens. We've lost 2 eagles too. Don't tell anybody. All right, let's just send this jammer home. All right, what do we have here? We got our F-15 Strike Eagles. We're going to have them hover roughly to the west of El Wafra. Our best SAM hunters at the moment are going to be our A-10 Thunderbolts. 18 Mavericks on them. And what are we going to do? We got 15 minutes left. Let's liberate another section of the country by using the Royal Canadian Air Force, because after all the Canadian sentiment at the start of the stream, why the heck not? 6 F-18 or CF-18 B Hornets, a dual seat version, armed with regular dumb bombs. Off they go. The Maple Syrup Brigade is on their way to Kuwait. Now, there's a lot of ways this could go. I mean, we're really only scratching the surface of this scenario. We do have to take out those invasion sector HQs to flip the units to blue, which effectively symbolizes the liberation of Kuwait. We also have to destroy the enemy units on the Highway of Death, the Highway 8 heading out of Kuwait into Iraq. All of these units effectively is what we're in need of destroying. And we have to take care of the enemy air defenses, which is both the MiG-21s, MiG-29s, the Mirages, and all of the mobile SAMs that we assume are in place too. So there's a lot of meat on this scenario that we're not gonna cover off in this preview. Of course, for 2 reasons. One is that we simply don't have the time. My streaming time is 3 hours, and that's what we're limited to. And second of all, we're doing a preview, not a playthrough, so we're just trying to whet your appetite. All of that to say that in the end, there's a lot more meat on this scenario's bones that we have to explore. But at least you can see that we've done our bit to scratch the paint on the surface, and there's a lot left to do. With still 2,300 carry this 7, roughly 35 hours left in the scenario. All right, the Canadians have departed. Off they go. Canada to the rescue. Alrighty, so our aerial cover's in place. We actually have a positive ID on the SAM, which makes sense because we just got shot down by it. Our sentry's nice and close. We've got plenty of intelligence data flowing into the radar domes of these 2 aircraft. Stratotankers are on their way. Where are our... Oh yes, the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts, indeed. I think our Hornets are going to beat them there. It's our race. Oh, geez Louise, those Thunderbolts beat them. All right. Well, I think we can take out that SAM with the Thunderbolts, to be honest with you. So let's use the Thunderbolts for the SAM. Of course, we'll use the Canadians for hitting the invasion sector HQs, which Sabah al-Ahmad is the closest. Off we go. Now, in terms of other intelligence gathering aircraft, our U-2 is actually halfway to the target zone. I am surprised how many unknown mobile units we've detected. I wasn't looking at the game log close enough to see what was actually detecting, whether it's ELINT capabilities or comment or just regular radar. Like the Strike Eagles lit up so many more units than I thought they would with their radar. That was very impressive. Whatever these are, though, they're staying active. They must be emitting. They're not emitting. Something's keeping them lit. Something is keeping them lit. All right. Thunderbolts are almost there. The Hornets are halfway to their target area. We got 10 minutes left in the stream. We'll take out the SAM. We'll take out and liberate a bit more Kuwait, and then I think we're going to call it to an end. As always, it's my pleasure to stream for you here on the Slytherin Group Twitch page. I am Dr. Zayas for the Stoic Frog Gaming channel. Some of you may have seen my YouTube channel at stoicfrog.tv. I also stream on twitch.tv/stoicfroggaming as well. I do some Command Modern Air Naval Operations. I do some Command Modern Air Naval Operations every now and again on Twitch, but I'm more of I use that more for YouTube. I play a lot of variety of games, but if you're looking for more Command content that I do, hit up my YouTube at stoicfrog.tv. That's where I keep most of it. Currently still playing through the King of the Border scenario. I've got the other episodes recorded, just have to edit them. I want to get them up ASAP because I do want to start a playthrough of Desert Storm when it releases next Thursday. So that's coming up. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. I've learned never to make promises because it's very hard to keep promises for YouTube content. But that is my hope, my stated objective. All right. Our A-10s are getting close. What happened to the U-2s? They're on their way. Roughly over Riyadh right now. Actually, no, just past Riyadh. So they launched from King Khalid Air Base, more than halfway to the border with Kuwait. So they're getting there. They're getting there. Let's see here. We'll zoom in on the Thunderbolt. Let's actually take him off his waypoint. We'll F1 on the SAM platoon to auto attack. Let him do his thing. Engaged offensive. And missiles out. Holy cow, 8 missiles? 10 missiles? Whoa, 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 whoa. Why are we launching 10 missiles on this little SAM site that took 1 Tomahawk? Missile defense, 12 harpoons. Okay. Okay, so I didn't realize that beforehand. But apparently, if we have 12 missiles of any variant, we're going to fire it at this SAM site because apparently it's a real hard one to take out. Let's actually take a look here. I wonder if there's a better way I can approach this. Let's look at the missile itself. 40,000 feet is the maximum target altitude. So maybe I've underthought this a little bit, actually. Maybe I have underthought this. Let's take a look at our Strike Eagles again. Strike Eagles? No, let's go back to our laser-guided bombs. I'm wondering what the range is on our laser-guided bombs. See if we can go above 40,000 feet. We said earlier there's no weather in the area. We've got clear skies. Take a look here. So the paveway. Launch from 10,000 to 65,000 feet. Well, there you go. So, what you have just been watching is the less than optimal way of handling attack on a SAM site when the SAM site can only reach up to 40,000 feet. What I should have done, and now that I know it, it seems very easy. I should have taken my Strike Eagles with the laser trackers or the laser designators and sent them to 45,000 feet for their altitude and then had them attack because the SAM can't hit them. The SAM doesn't have the range to hit them. So instead of putting my aircraft in danger, that would have been the smart thing to do. Because here we lost a Thunderbolt. And there's more SAMs on the way. And there we go. SAM site down. So we lost one aircraft out of two. But even more importantly, we have discovered the weakness to the SAM platoon, the speed SAM platoon's weakness, which is altitude. Suddenly, we seem to have a ton of options. We could have launched our A6s at a high enough altitude. We could have launched our Strike Eagles. We could have launched a lot of things at a high enough altitude to take that out. But alas, you learn as you go, right? Someone said earlier, I've got a great grasp on the modern technology of weaponry. Well, there you go. Always learning. Always in motion the future is. So there's proof that you can always do things a little bit smarter. Right. Final thing we're going to do on the stream here, before we close it off, we're going to take our CF-18 Hornets, let's auto-attack the invasion sector HQ in Sabah al-Ahmad. We've got 48 500-pound bombs. Going to send our little Thunderbolts home, because they're pretty much all out of weaponry. Wasted it all on the SAM site. F-15s are kept at 40,000 feet, eh? Are they really? Max alt, 4,500. For the C variant. Let's see, the E variant I assume is 4,500 as well. Let's see, F-15E Strike Eagle. Max altitude is somewhere here. 45,000 feet. So we do have a bit of room to play with. I think that would have been the smart thing to do. I know there are SAMs that, like the SA-2, I think, cannot hit below 1,000 feet. So you can attack the SA-2 by going low on it. Now we know that the speed SAM, if you go high on it, it can't hit you. Good to know. File that one away for future scenario playthroughs. Making all the mistakes, so when this releases next week, you guys don't have to. You guys will be pros. You'll be like, listen, I watched this guy mess it all up. Here's how you actually do it. There you go. You're welcome. All right, bombs out. We're launching 2 bombs at a time. Very conservative Canadians. Let's see. We missed by 2.5 or 2,500 feet. Okay, let's just get this over with. We don't have time to wait for 2 at a time when you're going to miss by 2,500 feet. So fire 8. This is effectively the nuclear policy of the Canada doesn't have nuclear weapons as far as I'm aware, but this is our equivalent. Fire all the 500-pound bombs. We are liberating you, and you will like it. There we go. 46 500-pound bombs out. Let's see, we're missing by 700 feet, 600 feet, 2,000 feet. Ooh, we actually hit it. We got 1 hit, boys. Guys, people, viewers. There we go. We did it. Canada has liberated Sabah al-Ahmad, and all is right in the world. Just ignore all the craters. There's a lot of craters. All right, guys. My time for streaming is done. So what have we done today? Let's just do a quick recap. We played the 14th scenario in the upcoming Command Desert Storm DLC. I think it's a mission set with 14 scenarios in the Gulf War campaign, plus 1 standalone hypothetical scenario being released on March 28th. This was a preview stream, so we played it through enough to whet your appetite. Hopefully you enjoyed what you saw. If you're looking forward to getting this expansion pack, it'll be on the Steam store, as well as the MatrixGames store on March 28th when it releases. Thank you all for coming out. Hopefully you guys had fun learning more about what's coming down the pipe on the 28th of March with this scenario. And there's plenty of left in the scenario on the table. Like I said earlier, we've got the highway of death with which to deal as well as a lot more Kuwaiti liberation. So a lot left on the table. Hopefully you're looking forward to playing it yourself next week when this drops. I am Dr. Zayas for the Stoic Frog Gaming Channel. It's been my pleasure to stream for you today. You can find me at stoicfrog.tv. That's where I do a lot of my command content. That's my YouTube channel. And I stream as well on twitch.tv/stoicfroggaming. So thank you all for coming out, wherever you are. If you're across the pond, if you're on the West Coast, if you're on the East Coast, thank you for hanging out today. Hope you guys had a good time and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you again next time. Take care.